good evening. We're starting at 10 o'clock. I'm very proud of that. Appreciate everybody being here. Appreciation to our staff and team for pulling lots of stuff together. Cord in particular. Hi, Cord, can you hear me? Yeah, we've got a full, not quite a full day, but till what, 3 or something? 3:30? 3. So we're gonna get you out of here so you can get on to, and give you a break so you can get to work and do other things. We want to start things with a quick song. We're going to do some singing. Because somebody's birthday was on Monday. Jared. So why not celebrate Jared's birthday by let's sing happy birthday to Jared? All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Jared. Happy birthday to you. All right, so I think we've got a little icebreaker activity which we're going to do here in a sec. We'll do a quick agenda review. Maybe I'll just turn it over to Chief Copeland for whoever along to kind of welcome us. We appreciate your letting us be here.
An hour or two, probably.
Yeah. No, 60 seconds, man.
I'm gonna say I don't know why I'm standing, but thank you for coming to Keizer. It made life a lot easier for me. I don't know about the rest of you. Pendleton was amazing as I watched it online. I do not have any real cool ritualistic, like that intro was way cool. Warm Springs, yes.
Yeah.
Wherever it was, I was not there. Anyways, that was really cool. We don't have that here, other than welcome to Keizer. I'll give you just a couple housekeeping things. This is a CJIS, you know what CJIS means, criminal justice, information security, whatever. You can't just wander the facility like most places. You have your name tags on, which means you won't get accosted in the hallways, which is good. And people have done that before. They walk around and they're like, who are you? Anyways. Men's bathroom, go out the door, around the big windows. We call it the fishbowl because everybody can see inside. Go around, it's just right there. Women's is a lot easier to find right there. If you want additional coffee, if that runs out, I can make more coffee. That's in the break room up there, all the way to the back. I don't really think you need anything else other than, like, I'll tell you where lunches are, but really cool to go to, but lunches can be delivered to us. So hopefully you did your order. Other than that, I think that's it. Anything else you wanted me to cover?
I think just if you need to get if you need to go anywhere besides here or the restrooms or the breakouts, just let me know and we can get you an escort.
Yeah, and I can facilitate that. I do have our last staff meeting of the year at 1 o'clock today, so I have to bow out. I apparently have to run that today. Most weeks I do. Anyways, but yeah. So if you have anything, let me know. And I have a couple lieutenants working, and our record staff is amazing. So
thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Wenning has been in and out. You've probably seen getting things set up and all the audio and visual, all the stuff. So we just appreciate you and Lieutenant Wenning and other members of the team.
I'll let me go 5 minutes early one day.
Thank you so much. I wonder too if our chair, Carson, do you want to say like words of? I don't know, there's a couple of good news things. Maybe you should share.
Do you want to share the good news?
You should.
I'll let you share the good news.
Okay.
I'll let you share the good news, but I just wanted to say thank you, Chief Copeland, for hosting us today. And thank you to all the council members who joined us for the meeting. We've had a great turnout, both in person and online. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend together as we work on our strategic plan, reflect on where we've been this year, where we want to go. And I also want to shout out the team and Director Denman for all of their work in preparing us for today and tomorrow. I know there's a lot happening and, we're caring a lot for our young people, our kids, our families, our community. So thank you for the everyday work you do. And I'm looking forward to today's retreat. I'm gonna pass it to Brian to share the good news.
Okay, so two pieces of good news. One, the quarterly state economic forecast was issued this morning, probably around 9 or something, thanks to Sam, who reminded me that then he showed me on his phone that, and Sam, I don't know if I can quote the details, but might need to lean on you for that, but the forecast was good news. The deficit, the revenue projections are better now than they were a quarter ago. And so the amount in terms of the state's budget deficit has decreased from, Sam?
372.7 million to 63.1.
Wow, so dramatic,
Basically, that's what.
yeah.
Yeah.
Much closer to balance. The implications and what that means, we'll have to, more to come on that. Maybe in December we'll have more information. Of course, those forecasts come out, quarterly, so things can shift, but that's generally good news for the state. I mean, this is not all about just us as an agency, but the supports and services that families and youth and communities get as a result of state services is important and impactful. So it just feels really good to share that news. And then the other piece, and maybe Cord, you might help in this, and if you have other pieces of information you want to share, I might turn it over to you. We heard just the other day, and again, this is early, but there's a federal social services block grant funds that we get through the Department of Human Services, and we did hear the other day that it looks like those dollars may actually flow, again, not just to our state, but to other states. In the past, that's been a $6 million amount of funding that we then pass on to, or we use to fund grants that go to a bunch of community organizations around the state. So not sure of all the details. In the last biennium, it was $6 million. What it will be this year, they're federal dollars, so they actually come in annual pieces, not biannual pieces. So more to come on that, but that felt important to at least share that there's some good news on the social services block grant dollars. And again, as we learn more, we'll be happy to share it. Cord, do you want to say hello and add anything?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Cord Bucher. I think I would just add we've talked a little bit about the social service block grant funds. So they were in the new federal budget, but in the budget as originally passed, um, there was the absence of a waiver for what they call PAYGO. So there was a law passed, I think, 15 years ago that in any new federal legislation that increases spending, there has to be an offset. So you spend more money or you're taking in less revenue, you've got to make up for that in order to balance the budget. And in like every piece of legislation ever since the law passed, a waiver has been stuck into the legislation saying we're waiving the PAYGO requirement. And so there tends to be deficit spending. The waiver was not put in the original budget. And so what that would have meant was that as of January, SSBG or Social Service Block Grant would have been zeroed out in order to make up for the tax cuts and other expenditures that were in the budget. But in the negotiation to reopen the government, in the Senate bill that reopened the government, what got stuck in there was the waiver. So that PAYGO waiver, which was what we were kind of waiting for in hopes that it might happen, was put into the the bill to reopen the government. And so that is now affecting this new federal budget, meaning that SSBG should not be zeroed out as of January. We just heard this from ODHS. We're still trying to get some more clear documentation and a very solid green light from DHS to move forward. But it looks really good for us having those funds and being able to make grants. As Brian said, the total amount, it is 2 years of funding, and we only know about year one. We have not yet talked to DHS about how other sort of budget impacts could affect our allocation in year two, but we do have an agreement in place for the year one funds, we had just put everything on hold pending the uncertainty around the actual federal funds being available. So it's a little bit of a windier explanation, but we're optimistic right now that we will at least be able to make some grants with this money. We're just waiting on a little bit more clarity from ODHS.
Thank you, Cord. All right, I'm gonna turn over to Paul. We're gonna do a quick, like, icebreaker, kind of turn and talk. So Paul, do you wanna introduce that?
Sounds good. Just a really couple quick questions on the, actually, so I'm gonna jump back to what Court was just saying. Sorry, Paul Sell. I don't know, are we recording this? Yeah, okay. Paul Sell, probably important. But we do not have to do another RFA if those funds come available. We have it set up so that that is not the process we have to. That is a very important note that I want to put out there. So very quickly, if you can turn to your neighbor and just introduce yourself, but answer this two questions with your neighbor. Yours associated with YDD or YDC, or if you want to do the collective YDO, right? How many years have you been associated with this organization, right? And then what does the phrase youth voice mean to you? When you hear that phrase, youth voice, what does it mean? So just turn to your neighbor, introduce yourself, and how many years you've been with YDO, YDC, YDD, and you know, your position. All right. About a minute, go.
Hey, Nate, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I think the owl may actually. Okay, good. I asked Melissa to mute the owl so we can say hello.
Oh, okay, cool. I was gonna say, I was like, I don't even know what that means. So that makes
Yeah,
sense.
they
Oh,
call
the
the
thing
owl.
that goes around.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
okay, I
know,
see.
looks like an owl. So we've it's not anthropomorphizing the animal, but it's like I don't know, animal morphizing the electronics.
Yeah, but I know, right? That's funny. I love that.
Cool. Yeah, well, it's nice to see you online here. I'm glad I'm not the only one today.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I was. That's what I was wondering. I was like, oh, we'll need to coordinate breakout rooms and that. I don't think we're gonna need to do that. So okay, cool.
No, it should be hopefully simple. And I mean, we both are presenting, but I think that the technology will keep it pretty smooth for everyone in the room. Sorry, my power just came undone.
No, you're good.
Um, well, I guess so. I'm very happy that you're going to be talking about youth voice because whatever we think it means, I'm hoping you and Paul and Sally today are going to be enlightening us some more on that. Which I'm really excited about. I think that I don't know actually which topic you all have chosen to work off of. That I really appreciated the menu you gave us. It was really great to sort of have that to look at and work with.
For sure. I was just glad to be able to like offer some ideas. I think we're coming back.
Uh-oh.
All right. So, I apologize those who are online. I'm assuming Nate and Cord, you introduced yourselves. It's weird doing hybrid with two people. So this is I have to change my mindset. I thought there was like 8. All right. So we're gonna do a quick kind of whip around in terms of just quick introductions. As a reminder, which you heard, this is being recorded. I don't think the breakout groups are recorded when we do that, right?
Correct.
Okay. But we have note takers in there. And so we're going to do introductions. And I'll demonstrate and Brian will follow, but the quicker we can do it, I think it's really important. Just say your name, who you're with in terms of the organization, and how many years you've been with the YDD or the YDC. So tell us, please say if you're with the YDC, meaning you're on the council, or YDD, you're on staff. Anything else that we should do? All right. So, Paul Sell, Associate Director at Youth Development Oregon. I am about 5.5 years with YDD.
Thank you, Paul. Brian Devon, staff, director, just a little bit less time than Paul, because I started in August 2020, so 5 years plus.
Melissa Gallardo, Executive Support Specialist. I started a month after Brian, so just over 5 years.
Hi, it's Nisha Bishop, Administrative Support. I
forgot you're supposed to say with staff.
Oh, with the.
I'm with staff, supporting role.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Jody Snyder. I'm the admin specialist, and I'm with writing role staff. I've been there a little over 3 years.
I'm Molly Burns. I'm with radio staff and I've been trying to log into my work day. Find out how long that is. Maybe close to 5 years. So,
Yeah, I hired you in my first year, so yeah.
Well, I've never heard anyone having a challenge with Workday, so. Yeah, good morning, my name is Jeff Parker, I'm the CEO of an organization called Northwest Youth Corps. And although it's a fight between Brian and I am on my last lap of the YDC. I think that whatever the term of it is my second 3-year term or my second 4-year term, and I started.
hello, my name is Savannah Wise. I'm on council, and that really feels so much better because I actually have to know maybe like a year and a half. Maybe. Does that sound right? Oh my God, I'm so happy to be here.
Jeff Justison, I'm a Wasco County Commissioner, and I can't say how many years I've been here because it's not years yet, it's 6 months, I believe, with YDO.
My name is Kim Pledge. My day job is I'm an immigration attorney in Sourcewell and now the deputy ombudsman for the city of Portland. My involvement with YDO is I'm a member of the council and I've been since December 2023.
Good morning, I'm Savannah Rowe, I'm a former Benton County Commissioner, now happily retired. And I have been with YDC for also,
good morning. My name is Lois White, YDD staff member, relation at 34 years. And I've been with
Morning, I'm the YDT associate director. I've been with YDT since before it was born. I'm Lindsay Schoonover, and I am with YDT staff compliance monitor. And February, I've been here for 6 years.
I'm Jenny Glass. I work on the San Francisco Federal Reserve, and I've been on the council for 2 years.
Sam for Water Department of Ed. I've been on the council maybe ever since I got hired in 2008 with Abraham Court, and they're part of our commission children with families.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Ara Sachamani. I work at the Coalition Board of School Administrators. And Andy and Danielle were trying to help me remember how long I served on the council. It's more than 5 years. But you know, when things happen during the pandemic, it just kind of blurs all together. So I think more than 5.
Andy Leonard, 95 representative Oregon, Oregon Youth Development Council member, 8 years.
Good morning, Daniela Avila. I am part of the council and I've been here about 6 months. Thank you.
Andrew Copeland with Keizer. It's about a year, I think, maybe a little under. Yeah. About that.
Alex Robinson. And I've been here for a year and 6 months. Abraham Agaglia, YDO staff member. I was here when it was born, as I understood. I think this summer was 12 years.
Morning, Jared Shaw, YDD staff, grant manager, and I've been here, it'll be 6 years in February, I think.
Morning, I'm Sally Deck, YDD staff, grant manager, and it was 3 years on Sunday.
Cord, can you hear? Sorry, I turned around to make sure that's my head.
Hi, everybody. This is Cord Bucher. I am Deputy Director with the division now for 9.5 years.
You're at a computer, you can look that up. That's not fair. Nate.
Hello, everyone. Nate Latanzio. I'm a Youth Advisory Council Coordinator at Youth Era. And honestly, I think I'm coming up on a year on the YDC, something like that. It's close to it.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, we're going to turn it over to Nate and also Paul, Sally to do our first presentation. But just give me a couple minutes. I just want to run through the agenda. I think you all should have one in front of you. If you do not, there's one on the screen, if I'm not mistaken, on the outside screen. So, thanks for getting here early, getting all your coffee and all that other stuff. We're gonna have a presentation again, as I said, by Nate and Sally and Paul on youth leadership and voice. So that question was put into the agenda. That'll go to around 11:45. We'll take a break and get lunch. Then we'll have a working lunch where Cord is going to give us an update on the strategic plan, kind of what progress we've made, what are some emerging priorities. Then this afternoon, we're going to have, I didn't skip anything, some breakout conversations on 3 different topics. I think Paul or Melissa or Cord, do they get to choose which one they want to go to?
We're gonna rotate all 3.
Oh, we're gonna rotate through all 3, so you'll get a chance. So I don't know if we'll assign or break up the room, however, we'll figure it out. But you'll get a chance between 1 and 2:15 to have a short conversation, 15 minutes, on each of these 3 topics, which relate to our plan and relate to things that we're working on. We'll have a short break, and then we'll just do about 30 minutes of reflection. So that's our schedule today. Just a quick reminder, tomorrow is virtual. So please make sure you've got the link to get online. We'll just have folks online and virtual for half an hour from 9:30 to 10. Then we'll have a couple of presentations tomorrow. One on understanding and honoring traditional tribal practices, led by Caroline Cruz from Federated Tribes of Warm Springs. We're looking forward to that. Then a break, then more of the breakout conversations. Those will be online, so we'll divide you up in virtual breakout rooms. You get a chance to have a quick conversation on each of the 3 topics listed there. Break, then an afternoon of a couple of different presentations, which I think are connected in terms of what partnership work is happening, which is a key element of our strategic plan. So excited about presentations from the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission with their, I think, Deputy Director Wes Rivers, and then about a little bit after that with the System of Care Advisory Council and Anna Williams, their director. So excited about that. Then 30-40 minutes of next steps and takeaways. We'll wrap up tomorrow around 3. Any questions on the agenda or Cord, anything you might want to add? No? Okay, I see you shaking your head. All right, that's it. If you have questions, you can probably ask any one of those staff. But I'm going to turn it over to Nate, Sally, and Paul, and appreciate having our council member, Nate, put together this presentation. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hey there, everyone. Again, thank you for having me and giving space at our retreat to talk about youth voice. Apologies for not being able to attend in person. The end of year got way busier than I anticipated over here, but I'm still happy to be able to join and support this topic. Thank you for having it hybrid. But before we get started, I just wanted to emphasize that this next hour and a half, hour and 15 is going to be more of a guided discussion than a webinar or anything like that. The goal is to share a few elements around youth voice that can be helpful to just consider and keep in mind. And then we'll be guiding some discussions on how that will hopefully help serve the council and YDO going forward. So just to introduce ourselves, we just went through that real quick a second ago. But I just wanted to say, again, my name's Nate Latanzio. I coordinate a youth advisory council here at Youth Era, which is a youth empowerment nonprofit. And I've really been working with young people, really since I graduated high school back in 2015. I'll pass it on over to Paul or Sally for anything they'd like to share.
I'm Sally Neck again for the record. In all ways. Sorry, I'm trying actually to load big slides on my laptop. Next.
That was perfect. I love it. You were a teacher in.
Oh, okay. Background in higher education, top management at the University of Washington Tacoma campus. Also have experience in a nonprofit that focused on serving specifically girls who are underrepresented in technology, connecting with their math teachers, with the girls who were showing real promise, be invited into spaces that were very friendly and welcoming, so they could then have connections and mentorship with women who have careers in STEM. So it was a very formative opportunity to work with volunteers, connecting with you around a subject they're really passionate about, and really targeting specifically underrepresented minorities in tech and helping people find their on-ramp into a career that works for them.
Thank you. And I was doing the same thing, I just lucked out that my internet signed up. Paul Sell, again, for the record, prior to YDO, I spent almost 20 years in K-12 education. I started in middle school teaching math, of all things, girls and boys. I love the middle school, it was fun, it's a great place to connect with young people, and then moved to high school administration, both in comprehensive as well as non-traditional alternative education. One of the things that I just value about engaging with young people in schools is you can empower them to do amazing things, right? I've met a lot of young people in my life that feel like they're going to change the world in terms of it, and it's exciting to be part of that and watch that happen. So youth voice to me is a really real thing that can really be impactful in the work that you do. And we always said, especially in high school, if you want something figured out, broken, or challenged, give it to a high schooler or other middle schoolers, and they're going to do really well with those challenges. So, hey, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you both for sharing and navigating this workshop with me here. I'll keep us rolling here. I always like to include this slide when doing any like community or public presentations. It just shares a bit about my organization, Youth Era, and like what it's all about. But for the sake of time and in a nutshell, like all of our work revolves around supporting young people and the systems that serve young people to create lasting positive change. And this can look like a lot of things. We do a lot of direct service, like youth peer support services, training, advocacy, things like that. But moving us forward to our plan for like this next chunk of time, we're going to start by like setting the stage for the discussions that are to come. Then we'll move into some just from food for thought or just some concepts to consider when you're thinking about how to foster, youth leadership and voice in the work that we do. From there, we'll move into a brainstorm sesh where Paul and Sally will guide us through like how these concepts that we go over can plug into YDO processes, as well as like just working together to see if we can all start like working towards forming some collective like core values, especially as it relates to young people and youth voice and all things like that. So to get us rolling into that, I figured a good place to start is by discussing what we even mean when we talk about youth voice. It's helpful that was in the icebreaker, so we already got started with that. Let me see. So we're going to be doing some like small group partner work here. I don't think we have enough folks online to do breakout rooms, so that works. It makes it a little easier for us. But the questions are, how would you define youth voice? Or if that's hard to digest, what does it mean to hear from young people? And we'll be having this discussion for about say 5-10 minutes or so. I know we're a little behind on time, so maybe we just aim for 7 minutes on this. I'll put a timer up on the slide in just a second. But I'm curious, are there any questions about these questions or anything thus far? I just want to pause before we dive into this.
Nate, just to verify, you said we wanted to do how long? 7 minutes?
Yeah, 7 minutes would probably work. I should be able to put it up on the slide too, put a timer up. I'll turn it on.
I'll set a timer too, because I don't know if you can have, I don't know if people will hear you, so. Oh, perfect, there you go. All right. Wow, awesome. Nate, I like you controlling the screen.
Sweet, I'll check it in just a few.
How are we doing just turn to somebody who you have not, didn't introduce yourself, turn to the opposite direction and talk about these two questions. How would you define youth voice, and what does it mean, or what does it mean to hear from young people in terms of this concept? Talking to the opposite person.
Hi, Nate.
Hello. How's it going?
It's good. Well, this is fine. We didn't really get into it in the first little short conversation session we had. So, is this timer a Canva thing? Is this
Yeah, Canva
okay,
has it
cool.
built in. It'll let you play music, and I can draw on the screen. It has a lot of different things, honestly. We used to use Google Slides, and then just Youth Era takes its graphic design seriously. So we're like, this
Yeah.
doesn't work in Google Slides. We got to do Canva, and so it's worked out pretty good.
Yeah, I've seen some presentations with it. I feel like I tried using it ages ago, but I'm sure it's much better and different now.
It's limited. It's definitely limited. Like speaker notes, you can't put bullet points, adjust text size, bold, underline anything. So it's kind of
Oh,
annoying in that end,
I'm not
but
think I'm thinking of Canva. Like Canva is the I have Canva on my phone to do like very sort of like janky graphic design stuff. Is
oh
that?
yeah. It
Oh,
can do
okay.
that too. It can do flyers. It can also do presentations. I
I
think
had no idea. Okay.
yeah, I don't know if that's a it probably is a newer feature if I had to guess, especially since they have some room for refinement. That's for sure. But it works
Well, it's yeah,
decently well. That's what we use generally speaking now.
yeah, I don't I've found it like for I don't have Photoshop, so I found it works well on my phone for the things I need to do. Um, cool. So I feel like I should probably say what I think because you are the presenter and you
Yeah, you're good. I would
might be
love to hear.
cheating if I hear you first. I mean, I think there's a few things that like if I'm going to define like authentic youth voice, like I think that it has to be one, I think coming directly from young people and not filtered through adults,
Hmm.
which can, you know, I mean, means sometimes um, there's a listening or receptiveness component for that as well. So it's interesting because way I think about it is that like it's creating a context where that can happen.
Hmm.
Um, you know, where you know the adults or the people in authority or whatever are making the space for young people to come and be their authentic selves, share their authentic thoughts,
Yeah,
and not creating a filter for it, and also being willing to kind of like engage with that and try to understand it, even if it's challenging, either challenging to understand or challenging, you know, what the expectations or preferences of the people in authority are. Um, I think that it also is something that um, I mean, I think that I think, I don't know if this is fair, if everybody would agree with this, but I think one of the challenges I've seen for like in our work or my work and is that it's kind of a thing we think about as having this place. Like we're like, how do we create space for a youth voice, you know, youth council members, or how do we work with our grantees to kind of create this in the same way that it sort of like requires a certain kind of setting or like you know, allowance for it to like really foster it and allow it to happen.
hmm
It also, to me, it doesn't have to conform to, okay, we're making a, you know, we're going to have this meeting and it's where the youth get to talk.
hmm
So it's how do you also like, if you really want youth voice to be a part of what you do, I think you have to figure out ways to make it easy for youth to bring their voice whenever they want, and not just when they're invited. Which I think is it's hard to do in an institutional sort of setting like we are in.
For
Um,
sure.
I think maybe, you know, at the program level, though, I think that is can be really powerful. Those are kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that I'm glad that we're spending the time doing this because I was like, it's one thing to be like, talk about the importance of youth voice. And yes, we love it. And with that, like, okay, great, if we have everyone on the same page. Like, it's actually pretty hard and nuanced. And there's a lot of like logistical and just like, there's a lot of components that go into and factors and considerations around like hearing from young people, especially given the type of work that like YDO and the YDC does. Like it's a lot of it's behind the scenes and it's even tough for like professionals like myself to like digest and have a full understanding of things to give like meaningful feedback, thoughts, ideas, things like that. It's hard. So it's like, how do we bring it down so it's digestible for young people and it's tangible? And that's one of the things I'm hoping to, especially when we move into that food for thought section, that's one of the things I'm really hoping to get into is just naming like, hey, there's barriers to this, and I'm not going to pretend that I have all the solutions for this. But one of the big things that we'll get into is values and how values are going to guide us through that. Because the reality is we're going to run into problems with this and challenges and barriers where our hands get tied in one way, and we're going to have to be creative and the values will help us be creative on this because yeah, and that's the thing too, like you mentioned, it's like being prepared if we want to hear from young people, like be prepared for critical feedback as well. Like that's something that I found doing the youth advisory councils. Like a lot of young people, like I mean, it's the same thing with like leaving product reviews and things like that. Like you're gonna hear like a lot of reviews, not as many people go to put positive reviews as they do negative reviews. I actually don't know how to bring everyone back, but I'm.
Want me to facilitate it here in the room, that would be helpful. We didn't decide.
I turned it down. I turned it down.
Oh, we muted you. We can't hear you.
Nate, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, now we can. I had you turned down. Sorry.
Sweet. Well, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for jumping into discussions on that. I'm curious, we won't have time to hear from everyone, but would anyone like to share a little of like what came up, anything that they found to be profound or helpful or anything like that? No obligation, just wanted to give the space.
Y'all were a talkative group, now you're all.
Alex was amazing. That's
No,
a great idea.
Yeah, I can very briefly, Alex Robinson for the record. So I think that the youth voice is more than just hearing our youth, it's about centralizing them and actually getting them involved into the systems and processes that affect them. You can't make big decisions about how they're supported or how services are ran without actually getting input from the people who are most affected by them.
Beautiful. I love that reflection. Just like that's something that Cord and I were just talking about, like the different ways in which we can hear young people. Like, are we hearing and then like, okay, great, we heard that and going on our merry way through the rest of the day? Are we integrating it into our processes and like, how do we show that their voice is tangibly being heard? I love that. It's great consideration. Any other thoughts?
Zana, I want to acknowledge my neighbors' valuable contributions and what really made was the fact that she was saying that as adults in particular, we need to suspend our filters when we listen to your voice because we often tend to filter out everything that's not possible or that would be difficult to achieve. And we need to be able to listen for what these suggestions are and acknowledge that there are barriers, but not immediately discard everything that might not be possible. That's, I think, that when you're deeply embedded in the system, something that can be really because we're always thinking about how much time we have and how precious time is. And it takes a lot of time to try to innovate or even to elevate ideas that might not fit into the square peg. Whatever. I can say yes.
I love that. I wasn't able to hear all the pieces, but I was listening in, and from what I could hear, I heard that like barriers were mentioned, and that was something Cord and I were just talking about too. And that's, I think it's easy to be like, oh yes, youth voice, love it. We want that. That sounds great. And it's another thing to be like, all right, tangibly within our systems and the reality of our work, like where can and cannot this plug in, and what can that look like when that time comes. And that's something that we're going to be getting into, especially as we dive into just that like food for thought of what this can look like as we proceed forward. Any other thoughts, insights, anything like that before we keep going? We won't be leaving the subject, we'll still be discussing it, but
Sorry, you didn't see me point, Savannah.
Oh yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, we kind of like, me and Jeff had talked about like how he had seen a switch in like people speaking authorities, like what youth want to now like including youth. And I kind of just, went on a little tangent about how I would love to see more of like being intentional with like what youth are brought to the table. I think a lot of the time, right, you might get like a few on these boards or wherever you're going. And it's usually like the best of the best kids that like have the grades, they have this, they have parents that are active and like engaging. And you don't always see those kids that like really are impacted by the like things that we're talking about fixing, right? Like the kids that have been like in the system or like don't have like access to the like resources and stuff to participate. It just kind of depends on the context, but it would be really cool to like give kids that typically aren't seen as leaders more leadership opportunity, especially in things that like really impact them.
I love that so much. And that's something that like I know I resonate with that a lot, like especially in the work that I do as a youth advisory council coordinator right now. Like it's like that's the thing is like we can engage. There's a whole lot of young people out there. And when we're thinking like who, I mean, all voices, I want to hear from all voices and who isn't oftentimes heard. And it's usually the young people that are involved in multiple systems that are struggling, that maybe have even fallen through those systems and would now like be classified as like disenfranchised or system wary, and that it's challenging, right? Like how do we build the trust so those young people are comfortable enough to come and share their voice with us and just engage in these decision making processes? It's hard, and that's one of the things that really we're going to be getting into is talking about like how values can help support us in that, because the reality is that we're not going to walk away from this workshop and be like, oh yeah, just do this, that, or the other, and you're good. You got youth voice. There's a lot of work that's involved within this, and just having some just considerations around the ways in which this can look, which ways respect young people, which ways maybe don't do so as much. And yeah, so I'm going to pause myself before I get it too ahead of myself. Any other?
Daniela was gonna share something.
Yeah, thank you. Daniela Avila. Nate, I appreciate that. I mean, I think youth voice is one of those things that's like a buzzword. We've been hearing it for a couple of years. Everybody says they do it, but to what degree they're really doing it with integrity and intentionality. Andy and I had a great conversation, twofold. Number one of the things he talked about was really creating, much like you had discussed, an atmosphere where youth feel like every youth at any space, right? And that's hard work to elevate youth voice everywhere, but really to create that feedback loop and that training and that support so that it doesn't have to just be a kid or a youth sitting on a leadership committee, right? That in every space and place, they feel like they have a way to communicate what they need and how they need it. And I also think for me personally, on the other side of that, what I've seen in my experience is youth today communicate more than ever, but they don't always have the tools to communicate appropriately and advocate well. And I think that's the other thing that is important. When we train them up, we really need to tool them up and not just advocating, right? But truly advocating where their voice can be heard and where it can be honored on both sides of the conversation. I feel sometimes it feels like there's a lot of frustration coming on their end, right? And then the other side of the party doesn't really hear them or value what they're saying because they're not yet comfortable in the way that they're communicating with people. So, yeah.
I was gonna say thank you for those Oh wait, am I cutting someone off? Sorry.
No, you're good, Nick.
Oh, okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure. Sorry, we're just checking in. But I really appreciate that because that's one of the big considerations that like I know that I find is like this is something that comes up frequently on the youth council that I'm currently on, is talking about like, okay, how can we be most effective about advocating? Because we want to see change. We want to see outcomes and results, and what is the most effective way to get there? And it's not always to yell it on the top of the roof in a way that's going to put folks on the defensive. There's a level of tact and, I mean, in reality, diplomacy that comes within that. And that's something that I know that we navigate, and something that we'll need to navigate as a council as we consider what this will all look like. So let me see. Well, I'm going to keep us going. Again, if there are more thoughts, don't worry. We're going to have plenty of opportunity to dive more into them. I just want to get rolling, just get really through some of information on that, food for thought, some nuance. What do we mean by youth voice? And then hopefully I'm gonna really hold myself on going down rabbit holes, because I tend to do that. So we can spend the most time discussing and really just diving, okay, like what tangibly can we do to navigate this and help support and empower young people? So I'm going to keep us rolling. Thank you, everyone, for your reflections. So I'm going to just go into some of this content here. So just to start with like a quick definition that we tend to defer to at Youth Era, I will say, by all means, if you have a different definition, hold that. Like this is just another idea of how this can look. But one definition is youth voice refers to the ideas, perspectives, and experiences shared by young people, particularly regarding the issues, systems, and decisions that affect their lives. And one piece in that definition that I'm going to elaborate more on in just a minute is that part on the decisions that affect their lives. Like this is a great way to determine when youth voice really should be sought out on the varying levels of how this work can look. Before that, though, I want to be real and name that it is one thing to believe in empowering youth voice, and it is another thing entirely to meaningfully hear and integrate youth voice into systems, including decision-making processes. Like I heard earlier, like it's oftentimes thrown out there like a buzzword, and that's something that we certainly want to be cautious in how we navigate. We don't want to tokenize or decorate youth voice in a way that's not actually supporting them. And it's something that can be done unintentionally. So we'll get into that. I'm going to pause myself on that rabbit hole because I'm going to get to that soon. But okay, yes, I'm going to keep this rolling. So bringing us back to that definition of youth voice, specifically the part I named on like around how decisions affect young people, this mantra on the slide, I would say wouldn't be a bad thing to memorize as we collectively serve young people. And the mantra is nothing about us without us. And what this means, as you can imagine, is that decisions, programs, services, and beyond that are like built to support young people really should have young people involved, if not driving the development process, as they're the ones who are going to know best about what is actually helpful versus not. Like we need this feedback mechanism to ensure that we're hitting the mark. And this is especially important in the day and age that we are in today. Youth culture has and continually is changing in alignment with the times. There's developments in technology that provides social media, which is a lot of avenues to connect with others. I mean, there's the political landscape to consider, and there's just many more factors that are going to impact the culture of young people, which can shift how services, that's what we're going to be talking quite a bit about, is how services that support them need to function in order for them to hit that mark. And really, I mean, all that aside, like at the end of the day, it simply is respectful to engage a population to hear their thoughts about opportunities that not only affect them, but are intended to help them. It's just, and there's a lot of different considerations and where that can also tie into. Um, but it begs the question, like, how can and are we meaningfully hearing and integrating youth voice? And with that, just to get us started and give an example here, I'll pass it on over to Paul.
It's probably a shocker that you see my name connected to RFA, right? I recognize that you talk about that a lot. But one of the things that when we were planning this workshop, that kind of resonated with me when Nate and I first engaged. He was like, I read a lot of applications. There's a lot of strong things in applications, but really, how do we know that they're doing it? So I'm gonna have Nate share, and we'll open the floor to others. We had quite a few YDC members that joined us in the evaluation process. But just to kind of ground us, really the question, and I will point out my error when we were making this, I was like, oh, it's item 5. No, item 5 is partnership. If you did do that, so I'll call that out. But evaluation item 4 is the concept around having that voice and diving deeper into it. So evaluation item 4 question, essentially it varies a little bit between it, but it's project equity and access. So there's 3 items: describe the policies, practices, and training your organization has been implemented to ensure safe, affirming, culturally and linguistically responsive, and inclusive spaces for youth, families, and staff. Item 2 was to describe how leadership and direct staff expertise, experience, and training are responsive to the needs of the youth population being served. And then the last item in that question was describe the role that youth, families, and community play in the design, decision-making, implementation, and evaluation of project services and impact. So that is a question we asked across that's an evaluation item that we asked generally across all of our RFAs. And where we are kind of headed in this conversation is what are our core values? And Alex will talk a little bit about the evaluation process. But when we train evaluators, we have an opportunity to share what our council's view is on that, or what our views are on that. And so that's the idea of how do we incorporate that into this process. So I'm going to turn it over to Nate, and then we'll facilitate others that were part of that evaluation process. I want to kind of share out their experience a little bit around that. Nate, I think I turned it back to you. Yes, I hope.
Yeah. I would say, I just have a brief note just to share a little on my experiences that, like, I know when Paul, Sally, and I were talking about like the RFAs and how it ties into youth voice, I was like, when that question, the evaluation item number 4 came up, I was talking about like, I was like, one of the barriers that I know that I encountered as an evaluator was that like a lot of what was shared on those applications, like talked about like the importance of youth voice. But there wasn't as much emphasis on that how piece, like how they're doing so, which it did make it hard to give like accurate ratings on those applications, which is a barrier that we'll dive into more in just a few minutes. But I just wanted to name that as something, especially if it was a name with buzzwords. Folks know what to. I mean, folks know that I've written applications before. Like I know what you got to. Folks will put in buzzwords, and I think that's helpful because show that okay they recognize this is important and how is it actually being done? It's easy to talk the talk, as I'll get into a little bit more later. But I'll pause on that. I'll pass it on back over to you, Paul, in case there's any other thoughts on this.
Anybody that did some evaluations care to share about your experience when we think about youth voice in that process? Yeah.
Okay, so now, so after the sixth meeting.
Speak up, Sam.
Oh, sorry, Sam, from the council. In reading the applications, a lot of applications stated that they send out surveys. But then, now I'm thinking about it, very few applications, and then he said, what did they do with the results? Did they do focus, or did the results help form their application? Did the results help, form the services that they're offering? So I think in the next round, maybe that's something I'll be looking for, like, what did they do with the survey results and stuff? I don't know if other evaluators read a lot of surveys.
This is Martha Chingami. Yeah, I've noticed that too, when they would reference a survey, but sometimes if you don't speak to the feeds who were in the survey and how you're integrating it into your work. I do remember in some applications, folks talking about focus groups and empathy interviews they've done with young people, and how they also work to have youth representation at the decision-making table with their organization, for example. So I think that'll be something to highlight as a best practice and how they're further integrating. Okay, here's what we heard from you. Here's how we're integrating it, right? And here's how it's helping our work continue to advance as well. Something I was thinking about, maybe this is for a future round. I feel like there's levels of engagement, but it's sort of on a sliding scale. Like some folks are emerging, some folks are practicing, others are like really embedded practices, so forth, right? And we kind of saw a little bit of that scale in some of the applications we reviewed. And that could also give some language to evaluators as well on, oh, here are some refinements we would make to take this from, they're starting, they have some elements of that practice, but taking it to the next level. So food for thought for our next application round.
Other thoughts? I'm going to expand it, because obviously the RFA is a pretty public process that we do. It's one of the most, it's a lot of money going out to communities. But when we think of our broader scope of our council, this is a question that I know Sally and I have wrestled with a lot. How can and are we meaningfully hearing and integrating the voice into our broader spectrum of the work? I got some thoughts on that. So I want to not just limit it to RFA, but I think it was a good place for us to start. But when you think about our work here, how are we utilizing meaning and integrating the voice into the process? Or maybe not.
Yeah, I would add that, Sally, that for the record. There are times and spaces that as a council, I've heard folks talk about, like where youth, where is a good use of youth time and energy to be engaged, in contrast to some of our procedural pieces that are requirements of state policy and processes. Like, it doesn't make sense to pull youth into the conversation with procurement, right? That there are spaces where we want to be cautious not to use the precious time of our youth when it's truly our job to clean up that bit, take care of that. And so to be thoughtful about what are the spaces where we want youth voice included, and that we can be thinking about the writing of the RFA and that evaluation question relative to specifically the evaluation question of like, where does youth voice inform the program you're asking us to fund, but are there other spaces where it makes sense for youth to contribute to some of where we create opportunity? So we'll circle back to it in another 10 or 15 minutes, but plenty to see.
Anybody want to share on these thoughts? Or wait for Dr. Nate?
I have a thought. A couple of things. First, I'm gonna blow our own horn was
Speak up, you guys.
the Oregon Juvenile Detention Facility guidelines that are being developed, and we'll have a little discussion about it later today. But part of what we did this time around, we did incorporate youth voice. We have several our youth members reflecting on the guidelines and helping us shape it. We'll also request, we asked for help from Oregon Judicial Department, the Youth Advisory Council. So kids who have had some experience with detention, physical detention facilities, responded to us what they felt was missing and what they would have liked to have. So all of it is pretty much in the guidelines and as best practices. So there is a way to listen, and there is a way to hear, and there is a way to put it in policy. So that's one. Another thing I would suggest, and Florence and I talked about it, is we'll also receive application. We don't pull ourselves grants here when we do deal with different type of grants. When we receive an application, usually the application is written by people who either were hired to present the program in the best light, or they were written by people who run the program, but they're never written by people who received the service, by youth who actually, whose life might be changed by this program or not. So is there a way to maybe, one, review the application maybe by a few sets of younger eyes, because if the service, I'm not in detention right now, so detention could be fun, especially the extended one, because kids spend a lot of time in there. But if the program is not beneficial, if it's not fun to be engaged in all these things, then it's probably not going to be a very beneficial to kids. That's one thing. Another, I don't know if we could introduce youth surveys, like youth who are participating in programs, like every, 6 months, maybe get a feedback from kids participating in programs. How do they find it? Is it something that they like to do? Is it helping? Is it working? So just get more of a direct feedback from youth involved in services that we fund. And with that, I will shut up. I will probably already do that. I just don't.
Thanks, Anya. Any other thoughts?
First, Chairman, again, as I'm kind of reflecting on my time on the council, I recall certain processes where with the youth committee, folks on the team would meet with youth committee members ahead of council meetings to go through the agenda, to talk about some of the key points of discussion that are going to be covered, and that being a way to make our council more accessible for youth members. And the other thing that I recall from our conversation at our last retreat is thinking about youth representation on the council, right? And how do we continue to remove barriers as we are recruiting folks who are younger and have important perspectives to contribute at the decision-making table. And then the other thing that I'm reflecting on is there are still a number of barriers that you face in serving on the council, whether it's time, capacity, and so forth. So as we work to ensure more representation on the council, are there things that we need to consider in terms of the timing of our meetings, structure, accessibility, location, and so forth, helping with transportation? Just something for us to continue to pay attention to, thinking about what adjustments we can make as YDO in supporting those prospective council members. From there, I think there are opportunities where the youth committee continue to help inform that work as well.
That I'll turn it, thank you, Marissa. I'll turn it back to Nate. I'm turning, this is weird. Nate, I'm gonna turn it back to you.
Sweet, sounds good. And thank you for all of those reflections, ideas, and just everything that come from there, because that's like, oh, sorry, I can kind of hear myself in the mic. We're good now. Okay, now it's not doing it. But yeah, and I think that's one of the big like things, that the common theme that I was hearing is that like, where are the opportunities where it's going to be meaningful and valuable for YDO, for the council to hear from young people, and then the consideration from there is like, okay, if it's valuable to us, like, how do we, if it's not already inherently, have it be valuable and meaningful for the young people that are joining? Like, what's in it for them? And that's something that we'll talk about when we get into relevancy in just a few. But I'm going to keep us going in some content. I'm just going to get us through that food for thought, just share some ideas so we can really hold the bulk of our time in those discussions. So I'm going to keep us going here. The questions that we're going to get into, I just wanted to share ahead of time so we can be thinking about these as we go over some of this information, is what role or roles does youth voice play in YDO's decision making currently? Similar but different. What role or roles can youth voice play in YDO's decision making? In this last piece here, I'd really invite you to focus some just intentional energy on and prioritize the time to get to this one, is what are the shared values YDO wants to uphold in our processes, grantees, partners, all things considered from there. So hold on thoughts, because we'll be circling back to these, but I want to share them ahead of time. But to scoot into that food for thought here, one of the things that like at Youth Era, I know that was pretty profound for me when I started, and it's just something that I'd invite us to start off with before we get into like the nitty gritty of it all, is identifying and bringing our values to the forefront, as really they're going to guide the work. And for those that aren't as familiar with values, values are the beliefs and ideals that shape what we care about, how we make decisions, and how we treat others. And this can be hard, as many of us will resonate with a lot here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set another timer on the screen for about, we'll aim 2-3 minutes. I'll put 3 minutes to think about and write down 3 core values that you hold close to you. Now, I'm going to, in just a second, I'm going to put up kind of like a menu of values on the screen. You don't have to pick from that menu. It's just to kind of help with those ideas and coming up with those. And one thing I do want to name, though, is it can be hard to like, okay, what are my 3 core values? Like, that's a really big question. So one, it's okay, you're likely going to resonate with a lot of them. Just get where you can in this time right now. And also, I'm not going to ask for folks to like share specifically what values they're named, because that's personal. You're welcome to keep that private to yourself as you'd like. I'll ask for reflections after this, but I'm not going to ask specifically for folks to share that. Just you can if you want to, but I just want to respect folks' privacy in that. But I'm going to set a timer. I actually realized once I go off of the screen that the timer won't follow it, because I'll be leaving Canva. But I'll keep an eye on the clock, and then I'll put a hand up when the time's up, if that works. But I'm going to, as I get these values pulled up, are there any questions about what we're doing? It's kind of like independent reflection. You're welcome to chat with others near you if that's helpful. But here, let me get this pulled
And if
up.
you're like me, when it says individual write down, I was scared I didn't have a pen. So I have pen and paper if you want, if you need it.
Or sticky.
Or sticky notes, yeah. We have writing things and things to write. Yeah, that's big, right? All right.
All right, perfect. Thank you. I'll check in about 2 minutes.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt. We still have time. I just want to say that you don't have to pick from this list. You're welcome. This is just a tool to help support.
We've got a minute or so left, so just maybe finish up that next thought or so.
Alrighty, I'm gonna start bringing us back here. It's okay if you don't have your top three. It's okay. It's hard to do that in a short period of time. I'm gonna bring us back to these slides here. I have to go and represent it. It's one of the cons of Canva. But you know what? We got it. There we go. Give me just a moment. Just organizing my tabs on the screen. Alrighty. So like I said, we're gonna hold on sharing these unless you really want to. You're welcome to. But I invite you just keep those fresh in mind. If you have them on a sticky note or a piece of paper, I invite you to keep those nearby because it'll be helpful when we get to those discussions. Before I keep going though, did anybody want to share anything that came up from that? Again, you're not required to, but I do want to hold the space just in case.
I'm seeing people look away, so I'm gonna turn it back to you.
Sweet. Sounds good. I always like to give a little 5-7 second
Oh,
pause.
Brian, another second to see.
Did you say we needed one more second?
Yeah, everybody's avoiding eye contact with me, so.
Okay, you're good. I'll keep us going. I just wanted to make sure. I thought someone said they need another segment. All right, I'll keep us going here. So hold on to those because it'll come back to those. So I mentioned at the start of that last slide that values will drive our work, and I just wanted to give an example of how this looks here at Youth Era when we provide like peer support to young people, just so we have some tangible examples to work with. See what this kind of looks like. So some of our core values includes mutuality, meaning that we are walking alongside young people, not leading from above. Shared power, where youth are the experts in their own lives. We recognize this and believe in this. Lived experience, meaning our stories matter, but we only share when it's helpful for those young people. And then lastly, on an empowerment, where we don't fix, we support young people in finding their own solutions. All of which is driven by youth voice and choice. And that right there is an example of me talking the talk about values. And we're going to move into some examples of how we actually operationalize these values and walk the walk, because I mean, really, that's what matters. So starting from the top here, mutuality. Like we do not and cannot tell a youth what to do. And our systems reflect this. Our policies and procedures reflect this value, so we're able to uphold it. On shared power, young people directly drive organizational decision making. Like we have youth interns, we have meaningful suggestion boxes, and young people completely drive their own care and peer support. It's voluntary. It's part of just what peer support is and the essence of it and the spirit of it. But on lived experience, like all policies and procedures are devised using an actual screening process to ensure they are trauma informed, which I'll get a little deeper on that example in just a second. And it's conducted by those with lived and living experience. Like all of our staff are peers or people with lived experience going through different youth serving systems, which was a value incorporated into our organization like from its inception. So values, and the reason I bring this up is that values can be brought in at the start of a program, organization, council, any of that, or after it has already been developed. It can be done in all levels of implementation. So even if it's not something that we've considered before, it's not like we're behind or anything. That's just, it can be integrated at all these pieces. But one of like the bigger reasons like we bring in values is because one thing that I mean I know I hear consistently from the young people I work with and like hearing especially on that youth council and hearing their feedback directly is how services are delivered is one of the biggest distinguishing factors in determining how helpful that program is compared to others. Like the way in which it is done, the respect that is afforded, the values that are carried forward through the programs is what tends to make the biggest difference, at least from those that I hear. I actually hear it every single time I've done a conversation with a young person to hear feedback. That's been the essence of the conversation, has been how services are delivered. Let me see. Okay, cool. I'm going to keep going here. So like really what I'm saying is, and I kind of said it earlier, like talking the talk is one thing and walking the walk is entirely different. So like for example, like on our RFAs with that trauma informed example, like it could be helpful for us to train our evaluators on focusing on the how, or looking particularly for commonly used terminology and how that is actually reflected into the programming. So like with that trauma informed, like this is hypothetically speaking on an application, like me as an evaluator, if I see they do trauma informed care on there, I'm like, cool, nice, love to hear it. Great word. I love that thing. But we were able to shift that to being like, okay, it says that, great. Well, I can look at the rest of what they share and see what speaks to how trauma informed it is. Like, how predictable is their programming? What speaks to that? Where do youth have control over the care that they receive, and much more from there? Because those are the parameters for trauma informed care. So if we say that we're doing that, then it needs to be reflective of these parameters, because that's what it is. We come from a place of understanding. So that's something we can be thinking about too. Again, we're going beyond RFAs as well. We're just thinking holistically here, but that's just to give another example there. But I do want to be real. This is the slide that I felt was pretty important here to bring in, is that I feel like one thing that's oftentimes missed when we talk about integrating youth voice is that it absolutely positively is not easy, and it's actually quite difficult. Like there are several barriers to youth voice, including like some of the ones that I have listed here. This is not all of them, but these are some of the big ones that came to mind. So like on outreach, do we have the staffing capacity to go to young people where they are at instead of asking them to come to us, which they usually won't, since I mean, let's be real, our work is rather complicated and it can tend to be behind the scenes. So if we don't have natural organic youth engagement, it's understandable. And if we do have the capacity, staffing capacity, are those folks that are in those roles in tune with youth culture? Because that really ties to that second point there on relationship. Like we almost need like ambassadors slash diplomats that like do have lived experience that can relate well with youth. And why that relating is so important is look at the first 5 letters of the word relationship. It's relate. So we got to be able to relate with young people if we hope to build a relationship with them, which is going to be our foundation for everything that we do with them. And one of the harder barriers, I think, like this council and just from my experience, like we'll need to navigate and brainstorm around is relevancy. Like, why should young people care about the work that we do? Like, how can we demonstrate its relevancy in a way that is digestible and tangible and respects them? Like, I know like one example that came up for me with this youth advisory council was in system of care, which we'll learn about later on in this retreat. If you're not already familiar, like, okay, how do we recruit youth voice in there? How's it worth it to them? And I was like, well, the bare minimum, they need to be compensated for their time like everyone else that is at that table, because it's all professionals in that space. So that's just one example, because it goes hand in hand with respect. But this last piece too on tokenism, I'm going to move to the next slide for this one. This will be my last slide, so I'll quit talking your ears off here in just a moment. But to dive deeper into tokenism, that it just brings me to something called the ladder of youth voice, that essentially names multiple ways in which youth voice can be heard and integrated in the form of a ladder. So it just kind of helps visualize what this meant. And this was new to me until about a couple years ago. Having this, I found to be profoundly helpful, and I'll explain why. So like youth voice isn't polarized where it's either you have it or you don't. Like there's a spectrum of ways that youth voice can be integrated into systems and processes. And for the sake of time, I won't get into each of these rungs on the ladder, but as you can imagine, the red rungs at the bottom, tokenism, decoration, and manipulation, not where we want to be, as we can all imagine. And we have to be intentional and reflective about that, because it is possible, and it does happen, to do that unintentionally. But moving to the yellow rungs, which is like youth consultant and youth informed, like these are a step forward. And I mean, realistically, this could probably be where, like, in terms of if we don't have youth voice into a certain part of our systems, like, it's just probably where we'll start. It's a starting place. We're able to hear from young people, and then, okay, from there, once we really build up the skills around that, then we can start looking at, okay, moving into these green rungs here, which look at youth adult equity, completely youth driven action, youth adult equality. This isn't always going to be possible in every context, like we were talking about. Where youth voice can and cannot be integrated is a thing that we're going to be talking about in those discussions, because we want to be realistic about this. We want to dream. That's important. Hope, I mean, that's really important. We need that. Hope comes from that. And we also want to be grounded in reality as well. So that's, like, I'm we're not walking away from this section being like, oh, Nate gave all the answers here. Certainly not. Just gave some considerations as we work through this because it's not easy. But really, like, being familiar with this ladder allows one to really see the possibilities of where youth voice can and cannot be built in the system. And I would even hesitate if there's a piece where it's like, if we feel like, oh, youth voice cannot be integrated here, we got to be explicit why that is. We got to name that and have that be communicated to the young people, at least on the youth committee, but even like beyond that too, if we have other mechanisms from hearing from young people. Let me see. I'm rambling here. I want to see any last thoughts I have. I think I mean, I find this to be pretty profound as it's easy to feel like we either hear youth voice or we don't, but there's so much more nuance between that. So I just invite you to be considering like where our efforts towards hearing from young people would fall on this ladder, like just as a way of reflecting, not as a way of judging, because we just want to get an accurate representation of like where does this idea land, and okay, if it's landing like lower down on these rungs, like okay, how can we tweak it, how can we accommodate this so it supports young people and respects their autonomy a little bit more. But I'll pause my spiel there. We're going to be moving into discussions in just a moment, but are there any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that before I pass it on over?
Right.
Cool.
Bright lights, longer, awkward pauses. I love it.
Hi all, this is Cord. I was going to share something that I said to Nate in one of our side conversations earlier on, which I just think is really worth thinking about for us, which is I think in youth voice, it's important for those of us trying to foster it to understand and be realistic about what we are able to do and like what is possible in our system, as Nate mentioned. Like I think knowing what we can't do or what is not possible to accommodate or fulfill is important. And so I think that like I like this ladder as sort of a notion of that you can continuously improve this, but also recognizing that if the best that an institution can do at any given point is say youth informed or youth consulted, that can be good. And an organization serving youth or even for us, like knowing where we are realistically and where we want to go, I think is just as important or more important than saying, well, we're going to do level 7 or level 8, but not actually be able to deliver on that or fulfill it. So I feel like grounding what we are saying we're doing in reality and really making sure that we are fulfilling it at the level we can feels like an important thing to use this tool to also recognize.
I love that.
Nate, I wonder, is there a way for us to assess, or any organization to assess kind of where they might be on some of these issues, like on the ladder, so to speak? I know it's a continuum and, you know, there may be aspects of the work that are one place and another aspect of the work that's in another, but are you aware of any tools to assess, Nate?
So we have one that actually that image came from that's on the right side of the slide here. I have one tool that's in mind. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if that one will fully hit the mark with what like within the context of what we're looking for. But now that you're saying that, it is coming. I let me check is what I'll say. Let me check because I feel like there is a tool because I remember my manager sending me something like a year ago or something that I believe tied to that. So I'll need to check. But if not, I'll share over what I have. But one thing I did want to say, Cord, that I love that you were sharing there is especially like on the things that like what can we do, what can't we do, where are our hands tied, and I'll throw it in the chat. I don't have a slide for it currently, but it just since you brought it up, I was like, when it comes down to like what would help support that is really like it comes to mind. It's something called the trust equation, which is transparency plus consistency over time. And that would just be something I would invite us to be considering is where our hands are tied. How can we be transparent about that and clear in a manner that is understandable for young people so they can see we're invested. We want to support. We still want to hear. And even if we can't in different areas, we're going to give a reason. And if we can navigate and advocate around that, then sure, then we'll do it. But I'll pause my spiel there and I will pass it on over to Paul for our next section.
All right. So before you click to the next slide, Nate, we're going to do a quick brain break. When you see the slide come up, I want you to figure out what's wrong with the slide. What's different with the slide? Okay, you ready, Nate? And then
Let's
you're
do
gonna
it.
All right, we ready? Go. What do you notice about the slide? Turn to your neighbor and tell them what you think is interesting about that slide. What's wrong with the will? If you haven't found what's wrong with the picture.
Cord nailed it in the chat. Yep.
Cord already figured it out. He hasn't closed the screen. All right, so anybody in the room figure out what's up with the frog?
Yeah.
Oh. We were planning to make pull all these in, and we're like, wait a minute, there's 4 hands on that frog. So, could you imagine why that was? All right. It's one 6 frog. Yeah. Who saw it? Just out of curiosity. All right. All right. So the next activity, Sally's going to bring you into groups, but we're going to get a little bit. We'll go to the next slide, please. I was telling Sally this is weird to turn to see the slides, and I have it here, but I don't record it. So we're coming back to those questions, and we're going to break into groups of however many Sally figured out. The idea is that you have council members and staff to discuss these 3 questions. What I would ask, and I'll come by with some paper, is you can see where this is kind of leading. This is going to need to be leading the charge in terms of some of our shifts with the youth council, our youth committee, and the work that Sally and I are engaging with our youth committee. So I'm going to come by with some little pieces of paper to write down some kind of takeaways that your group has. We'll also do a little share out on that. Nate, do you remember how long we were going to give for this?
Yes, 15 minutes.
15 minutes. We're going to give you 15 minutes, and we'll do a quick share out. Then we're going to shuffle groups slightly, and then we will have another conversation. We'll do that. So turn it over to any questions. We'll leave this slide up. Cord and Nate, you guys just going to keep having fun conversation? Yes? All right, thumbs up on Nate. Okay. Stop.
Okay. Jared, A, Alex, Andrew.
Team A.
Yep. Team A, let's do it. Brian is gonna join the next 3. Okay. And then we've got a group that is gonna be Sam, Jenny, Lindsay, and Anya. We've got a group that is Lawrence, Suzanne, Kim, and Jeff. And then Savannah, other Jeff, Team Jeff, Molly, and Joy. And the rest of us are Roman. So
we'll bring back
your team. Yeah, you've got your team. And these are the questions that you are working through for about 15 minutes.
And just to kind of look back at what you're writing down, have a conversation. But if you have something big takeaway that you think is important as we continue to move this work forward, please try to let it. Obviously, Nate's involved in this pretty heavily as well. So we just want to capture that. We're not doing a big bunch of paper because those are really hard to take home. All right, ready? 15 minutes, Nate. You got a timer for us? Awesome. Thank you.
So that's, I think, people would have to also feel comfortable sharing, knowing that it might not change under the current structure.
Hey, Cord, we're going to go ahead and interrupt your conversation for Nate. All right, if you can hear me, raise your hand. Circle it around. If you can hear me, point at Brian, because he's still the one talking. I don't get to play that very often. All right, so, sorry, I should have said don't go back yet. We're going to shuffle groups really quick, and we're going to move directly into the next conversation. So if you had 2 council members, you need to make sure you're next to the council members. We're going to do a little rock, scissors, paper competition on who shuffles. All right, so if there was 2 council members, you need to be ready for rock. If there's 3, then play with the, so find a common person if you can. All right, so if you have odd numbers, play rock, scissors, paper with whoever you want. All right, so rock, scissors, paper, it's rock, scissors, paper, shoot. Okay, go. Find out who wins. All right. Raise your hand if you won your rock, scissors, paper competition. Okay, if you won your rock, who won? Okay, who won? You two need to compete. Yeah, you two need to compete. Well, and I'm sorry, staff members should compete if there's two of you. Sorry. Okay, if you won, you need to find a new group. That's all right. If you won, you can find a new group. Quickly, please. You want to stay outside? If you won, please shuffle. Should be about groups of 4 or so. We need a council member right here. Yeah, we need another council member over here. We need another council member over here. We're just shuffling groups. All right. If you can hear me, put both hands in the air. Shake it like you don't care. Take your arms. Okay, all right. So I'm going to turn it over to Sally to introduce the next 2 questions because we're going to try to stay on schedule so Cord can we're up against break, so we really want to stay close to schedule, but we'll turn it over to Sally.
How many minutes?
Let's do 10 on the 2 questions.
10
total, and then yeah.
Okay, so
Right.
having thought about what youth voice could include, should include, the next question to chew on is where and how can this plug into YDO processes?
Those folks already kind of started on it in the last conversation.
Yeah, but
Good.
where and how does this plug into YDO processes? And then we'll make stop in 5 minutes and give the next question. Yes.
What? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
There we go. Go.
Go. 5 minutes.
We were A little step forward. You can hear me, try to take a little step back. If you can hear me, take a little step to the right. Take a step to the left. All right. Back over to Sally. Feel free to stay standing. We're getting close to break and lunch. I promise.
You are welcome to stay standing. We're going to do a quick debrief. We have Cord and Nate also. They can hear us. You can hear them. So what are the core values that rose to the surface when you were discussing how youth should be engaging, represented, and heard in YDO processes?
So the big one we kind of stuck on was inclusivity, making sure that you, all the whole age spectrum of different gender identities, different race and ethnic backgrounds, and geographically, making sure that we get all across Oregon, to make sure that we're not just hearing the youth voices, but we're getting a very diverse group of youth voices. Because people from different areas, different ethnicities, that have widely varying belief systems and how they do something. So getting everyone's perspective is really key in this process.
Other thoughts?
Included that, but also talked about the need for support for youth inclusion and clarity, or about what we're asking and what we're doing and what the intent is, and respect.
Inclusivity, support, respect.
We talked about transparency. Having great transparency, stating that we may not be able to do everything, but everything's on the table. If we can't, follow up on something. If we can't do something, there is going to be follow up. Let's discuss why, as opposed to just we hear you, but we're not listening. Thank you for your idea, but we're going to move on because we're not telling you what we can and can't do. So it's an openness. It's also follow up and explain, what is really happening, or why we can't.
Brian, we talked about in terms of values, compensation, radical accountability, and empowerment. Talk about the fact that our younger committee members and other members today are eligible for stipend money and so on, but Melissa knows this is probably better than anybody. It's kind of challenging to make it all happen. But it's there, but I don't know that everybody knows that. Accountability, like around decisions that are made, let's be transparent about how well that decision happened or didn't, how it worked out. And as we share power and empower folks, it's important to share, but it's also important on the back end to say, and here's how that worked out. Our group is over there.
Anything else?
So I want to share just real quickly, hopefully it's quick. A couple thoughts. One is we want to be really specific when we say the word youth, who we need. And do we just mean youth that are affected or some part of our YDO ecosystem? Because I don't think we mean all youth. I don't think we can mean all youth, right? So because it's just too, we'll be overwhelming. So that's number one. And then the other thing I think we all need to really keep in mind is that this body is not direct service providers. We are a grant making entity. The experts, there's two experts, one of the affected youth and the grantees that are delivering services in their communities. And so I want to make sure we don't get too presumptuous around what we think we can do. What we can do is create a grant program that is easy for experts to access funds to be able to deliver the services that are needed in their community in which they're experts. So we do want young people in this body, but I think where we really want young people is in those communities with those direct service providers. And just trying to figure out which one's easier. They're all both hard, but which one can we have greater success with? Because because what's working in Baker County is not working in Multnomah County necessarily. So just some thinking there. We've all been youth, but nobody stays a youth. But you can be a youth experiencing poverty, and you can continue to experience poverty. And so, like, there's also much intersectionality. We want to be clear who we're talking about.
Other thoughts?
Danielle Avila, the council. I agree, Jeff, and that was some of what we talked about, was creating systems that are built into our processes that support that on the ground and elevate everybody to not just stay at level 1 and 2 of youth voice, which I see a lot, right? And to really help to move the grantees up the chain, up the ladder through intentional systems and supports. Because I think they could learn a lot from each other about what does it look like to incorporate youth voice. Just having Nate at the table, right, is important for all of us. So thinking about the systems that we incorporate to help them all think more deeply about the work.
And I'm gonna, Zaya's council, highlight something that Jeff said. We talked about youth, involving youth in grant review, but also involving grantees more in telling us about how, even if they've been funded year over year over year, how their programs are continuing to meet youth need now, given that the environment is changing so rapidly and the pressures on youth are changing rapidly. So we're thinking about asking a question about how programs or your program model is continuing to meet youth needs from time to change. Or how do you involve youth in your program development? And again, putting it back at the level of program delivery rather than council. All at the same time, respecting the fact that we don't want to continually change the RFAs so that our grantees have to start, so their heads don't explode.
This is Brian, I remember, this just makes me think of an idea that came up in our group. It wasn't, what if the youth evaluators score was worth more than other evaluators? Oh, so just think on that. Oh, and whether that's good or bad or possible. That's just one of those elements of like thinking differently and saying, okay, no, you may see something that others don't see, and your total score has a more impact than, say, somebody else's.
Danielle Avila, it makes me think about youth today. We want to elevate their voice, right, and give them and empower them to make these really incredible and important decisions. On the other side of that, I think that accepting radical responsibility for what comes of those decisions, right, is the closure of the loop. As we start to elevate youth, there needs to be a system and a component that allows them to understand the impact of their decisions as well, right? Because that's the balance of power that we really need to elevate.
Anything else? Conversation happening.
We had a similar thought to what Brian's group had. He called it, what was it, youth bonus points? So if a youth was evaluating an application, they maybe just read one paragraph, a little synopsis, and their points would be worth more. Just.
And then when we were talking about that same idea, we talked about the fact that those youth contributing to evaluation should be broken up by region because the regions are so different. So we got that is nitty gritty of how on that whole concept.
I think that for us to dream about that is an important step in getting there.
Pilot project.
Right, and just the idea of like, that to have, specifically I'm thinking rural youth, evaluate the programs that are being proposed in that area, and that it wouldn't just be any rural youth, but rural youth who are likely to be impacted by that program. That would be an ideal set of evaluators years. And so if that's our ideal, what are the steps we can take now to get in that direction and to be, whatever, for that to be a bit of a North Star and to recognize that if that's where we know we would get great evaluation, what can we do between now and that space? Santa.
So something we talked about was like, how like maybe not necessarily like well, and this was my first thing, but like not necessarily like we need so many more youth in this space, because I don't really actually think this space give that much time for them to have with me. So there's just so much going on, so not like involved there, but just like more so like, if there was a way, like before we even see any of the grants, right, if there were like spaces for like town halls where intentionally we're including youth that like aren't considered leaders, right, maybe like we're talking to our community partners in that area, so maybe we're targeting rural areas, wherever, and like having town halls where we bring them in and we just kind of are like, what are the issues in the community, what do you want to see solved, like, you know what I mean, and kind of working back from there, like we've got these bigger issues, like when we do with the community, we still have like suicide, like drugs and alcohol, things like that. And then like, okay, then what could be done to fix those? Like, what could you see? And just kind of like working back from there, like what would be your dream community and how can we do that? So like having more spaces like where we're like, okay, we're identifying like here's these issues. And so then when we're coming to the table to look at things, then it's like, okay, well, like 10 different communities said this is an issue and this is perfect, because if we're reading applications, it's going to depend on us and our lived experiences, regardless of everything else, right? So if you've worked in a space where, like suicide prevention, right, or you know somebody that committed suicide, you can be like, oh, that's wonderful, right? And it is, but then you're not thinking about hundreds of other things that maybe you haven't experienced. So if we have these things where we're like, okay, we have hundreds of people saying this is an issue, and then we have something that would do that, then and talk about like, okay, people are speaking for this. So like actually going into their communities, because it isn't realistic to ask youth to come here as much as like it's required, or to even be granted evaluators. Like that is a huge commitment. So like maybe like backpack commitment where we're like we come to them, we're someone who's nothing from us, and like we go actually where they're at and break down that barrier, like them coming to us.
Anything else?
Coordinate.
Coordinate.
This is Cord Bucher. I'll share something that maybe flips some of that a little bit, which is that one of the things I talked about with Nate was actually involving young people from applicants in the application process. I mean, the evaluation process can be really demanding and complex. But are there ways that we can actually incorporate youth voice into the proposals or the applications that we're getting from programs? But then how do we also do that in a way that like we ensure isn't, I think on step 1 or 2 of the ladder on the part of the organization where they're like, you just got to trot out the kids that love our program. And Nate shared some interesting stuff about the ways that they collect feedback from young people on programs, positive, neutral, or negative, and try to create a venue for that. And I don't know if you want to share that, Nate, or anything else from our conversation, but I thought that was interesting.
For sure. I'm trying to think like, really, I think that's one of the biggest things too, is that like ensuring like if we're hearing from young people, ensuring we're hearing from young people. We want to, like, if we're going to be working with other organizations and hearing from the young people they're serving, I just think it's important that that information doesn't then just go through a third party, where that it is then filtered to fit what is intended to be demonstrated to our body that does provide funding. So I understand why that could happen, but I just think that's one of the considerations we'll need to be looking into. I would be happy to come back and share more about like how our Youth Advisory Council navigates hearing from young people across systems to hear their feedback and protect their privacy. There's a lot of different considerations that go into that, but the essence of it is that if we're wanting to hear from young people, we need to make sure we're hearing from young people and not just the folks that are giving the thumbs up on all programs. We want to hear from the young people across the board that are in that program, regardless of their perspective. If it's positive, negative, neutral, all of that.
Well, I think we've gone well into the break.
In our defense, those of us who were part of planning this section thought we had until noon, so we apologize. Our misunderstanding of how long we're 10 minutes past that.
I just really want to recognize Nate's expertise when we talked about this workshop. Just appreciate Nate. I'm
appreciate the conversation. I think all the grant managers are standing around like, ooh, you got some work. So this is really positive. I appreciate the feedback. If you have notes that you want us to really absorb, please make sure we're sitting at the front if you didn't notice, unexpectedly, but that's okay. So just get notes up there for us so that we can continue to capture this work and move forward.
We still have bottled water on the table here. Lunch is in the next room over. Do not wander beyond that space.
You are allowed to use the restrooms during our break, restrooms and lunch in the briefing room.
And
Bring your lunch back
as you
in.
walk out this door, you'll see the bags that have our lunches in it.
And they have our names on, right?
Yep. And how long are we taking for break? I'm looking to Brian for. What time are we?
It is currently
12:09.
It's 12:10 right now.
We've got break,
I mean,
then court, then break, then breakouts at 1 o'clock. So it's.
Why don't we at about 12, by 12:20, 12:25, the latest, like, be back in here.
Yeah.
And then we'll start with, then Court can walk us through the update. That might actually take us closer to 1, when we're done. But, so we may not do that second break, or we might, yeah, that's what's probably gonna happen.
Okay.
So you get like 10 minutes to get your lunch, have a break, check your email, do whatever, and then we'll get started with Court. Court, does that sound good?
It does. Nate wanted to jump in real quick.
I was thinking, if I could say one last thing, I just wanted to say shout out to everyone here. I appreciate the applause, and like really the applause goes to y'all for having these conversations and creating the opportunity to do so. Something I hear consistently from the young people I serve is they're constantly surprised to hear that there are folks that want to improve conditions, that do want to hear from them. It's literally like, it's shocking to a great many, and it can really hit the core. So I just wanted to say shout out to all of you for doing the work that you do, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you, Nate. Great.
All right, we're gonna bring y'all back. I think everybody's got your food. Hopefully you have a chance to get, I don't know, not outside, but something. I'm gonna be turning it over to Cord, who's gonna give us an update on the strategic plan. We all, because we're a few hours behind us in the eating, hopefully Cord got some food. He's not actually on screen, so there's that part. I guess, oh, there he is. There he is. Thank you, Cord. I know we're a little behind schedule. Appreciate your patience. We're all basically back here. I know we're gonna have, like I said, we're a little behind schedule. I know Chief's got to go in about 15, 20 minutes. But you can take us up until 1-ish, and maybe there'll be some conversation questions. But I'm going to turn it over to you here in just a second. We're going to be doing some breakout conversations after Cord's done on the topics outlined. You're looking at the screens or on your hard copy. I really just, again, appreciation to our facilitators this morning. Had a really active and lively conversation. Came up with some ideas, and it was intentional, I think, for us to kind of begin this retreat around youth voice and youth related work. So just appreciate everybody kind of getting into that. And also one other thing that I meant to say this morning was I started calling this our planning and learning retreat, because we didn't want you know, this idea of like planning and we're just constantly planning and we're writing things on, you know, around the room and putting sticky stuff. Like, we are actively moving forward with our strategic plan, which Cord will talk about. We also wanted to give some opportunity for you to learn some information, which will happen both this morning and later, in terms of new content and new information, and also like action-oriented planning, like real steps towards things that are interrelated. So, just saying that out loud, we are trying to move some things forward. So appreciate everybody helping us do that. So, Cord, to you.
All right, thank you, Brian. Yeah, you'll be happy to hear that I've never done a strategic plan update where I had the full amount of time that was on the agenda. So I did actually build this to be about 20 minutes long. So we'll see how that works out. So I was prepared. Melissa, I've got my slides in. I have them up. Should I just share the slides and punch it through and let you eat your lunch, and I can just take the show over for now?
That's great, Cory.
Okay.
We might need to request access to share. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I don't how see. I press share and it might let me. Let's see here.
Nate is nodding because we went through this morning. I'm waiting to see the little request. Oh, you got it.
All right, cool. Um, all right, let me go to slideshow from a current slide. Okay, here we go. Um, All right. Well, so for the record, in case I didn't say it, my name is Cord Bucher, Deputy Director, Youth Development, Oregon. I'm going to provide you all with an update on the strategic plan progress. So this strategic plan, we adopted a few council meetings back, and I'm going to update you on the status of a number of projects in the plan and how we're tracking that. And we'll talk specifically about what we identified as the priority projects, and how those are moving. But I think the thing that will hopefully be really valuable as a takeaway from this presentation is the ways in which the work we're doing today and tomorrow at this retreat is really taking a lot of different projects from the plan and moving them along or getting them started. And so in this presentation, I'll kind of outline the ways that the strategic plan, factors into the presentations, the workshop we did with Nate, Paul, and Sally earlier, presentations we will hear from others over the next couple of days, and the breakout conversations. Every breakout conversation is connected to a specific project within the plan. And so you'll hear, of course, more about those in each of the breakout sessions, but I'll give you just a little bit of context for where all this stuff fits in. So, as Brian said, this retreat is really meant to be a way for us to really engage with some of the work that we have set out for ourselves in the strategic plan. Before I get into projects and strategies, I wanted to just throw up the strategic plan imperatives, which are really the three overarching, I guess, values or goals that we've set for ourselves in this plan. And these three things are really woven throughout the plan. So prevention and intervention, connection and change, and equity and transparency. And we use these as kind of broad ways to sort of talk about themes in the work. And so as we review plan progress and some of these projects, just consider these imperatives. These are really things for us to reflect on. They're not categories. A lot of the work that we do can be prevention and it can be about creating connection in order to do that. It can be about, using equity and transparency to drive how we change things. So these are not separate things, but really just themes in the work. And I wanted to, again, put these up because this really overarches everything that we're trying to do here. So tracking progress, how are we doing that? Well, what we've done and are continuing to develop is a strategic plan progress tracker. So I've got a smart sheet. I've just put a little picture of it here. I'm not going to do a full introduction to the smart sheet tour or any of that. I didn't want people to try to eat their lunch and then go in here and mess around. We'll try to create, I think, maybe a public version of this that folks can go in and toggle. And this is something that is really built just for internal tracking of staff assignments, progress, and status of all the different projects in the plan. So it's a tool that I'm using now to really track what's going on with the plan. One of the things that we talked about in the plan was that as the work is underway, we might realize there are different ways we want to go about doing some of these things. And I met with the Juvenile Justice Committee a couple of months back, and there were a couple of projects where the language got refined. And that's the sort of thing that I can track in here. So I've got a place in this tracker where I'm tracking the revised version of those projects. And of course, tracking things that we're completing and tracking things that, there's obstacles or that we've put on hold. I'll talk about those in a bit. And so what I have in terms of progress report is a quick breakdown of where we're at in terms of the work in the plan. So out of the 66 projects that we have identified in our strategic plan, we've got 8 that we've completed. To be fair, a number of those were completed around the time or before we adopted the plan. They're really work that we had identified for our RFA process, and prioritizing the RFA work we needed to do with the council led to us delaying adoption of the plan. So we ended up getting some things in the plan done before it was adopted, but it was still really important work, and we'll hit on that in a bit. There's another 24 projects that we've started. Now, by started, that could mean we're starting it today or tomorrow. But in most cases, it means that we've at least initiated work, and we've, in some cases, made a lot of progress. But these are all things that were pretty timely. Most of them are among the priority projects that we identified, and I'll share about those in a bit. But roughly a third of what we have in the strategic plan has been initiated. Some of these things are going to be really long-term bodies of work. They're not things we started this month and they'll be done before the end of the year. But they're things that I think are going to be important to our work over the next few years, and it's underway. There are four things right now that I've marked as on hold, and I'll share what those are and why they're really not moving right now. And then there's another 30 projects that are not started. And in most cases, they're things that we did not really set out to do first. A lot of them have, goal delivery dates in 2026 or 27. And I think it's pretty reasonable that with such a large body of work that we don't try to start everything at once. So, I think that we've got a really good balance of, we've made some progress, and we'll talk about that. We've got a lot of work that has begun, talk about that. A lot of it is going to happen here with you all today and tomorrow, and there's still a lot more to come. I'm going to put this slide up. There's a lot on this one. These are the 12 priority projects that we had identified um, in our strategic plan. And what we did, the way that this came about was I think probably the last retreat that we did in November of last year. We took what we had in terms of projects and elevated some things and said, these are the things that we want to really focus on, maybe do first, but that feel like they're very important in some way to moving things forward. Um, you can see that there's like a little bit of color coding here. Everything that's blue is something that is either started and well underway, or things that we are going to be talking about at this retreat and using as a way to kind of either initiate or advance that work. The two lines in green, those are strategy 5, projects 27 and 28. Those are actually both projects that I think we could consider to be complete. I might ask Anya to share a little bit more about that in a moment, but those are coded differently to indicate that, to the best of my knowledge, that work is we can kind of check the box. It's underway and essentially done. Um, Strategy 1, Project 1, establishing a YDC meeting guest participant model, is the only thing here where I don't really feel like we've dug into it. We've it's a little bit similar to another thing on here, which was if you go down below the green there, Strategy 6, Project 37. This was establishing an informal youth conversation series, which was something that we wanted to do primarily with the youth committee. And I've marked this one as started because, as I understand it, within the youth committee, there's actually been some effort to like bring in some young folks who are not yet members of the YDC, and to sort of create some opportunities for less formal conversation, sort of outside of like having social opportunities for youth beyond just the youth committee meeting format. And so that may be a place where we've actually done some of the work of figuring out how do we involve guests or non-council members in the activities of the YDC. But that first priority project there is really the only one where we haven't looked at it and said, let's get this going. But you can see I've got notes in here about, most of these we're going to talk about today in some way, and a little later on, I'll share where you're going to hear about some of this stuff over the next couple of days in the retreat. Um, and actually, if Anya, if you don't mind, for just a moment, if you want to comment on the implementation evaluation of our 25-27 JCP plans, which was a priority that I think we've now, that has happened, as well as the Title II 3-year plan and probation reform, and what the status of that is. I'd love to hear from you about those two. Sorry to interrupt your bite.
Or do you want me to comment now?
If you wanted to just comment on it now, or if now's not a good time, I can keep moving.
I don't have Kelly stuck in my shoe. But that's very good. The plans are being implemented, they're delivered, developed, and reviewed by the Juvenile Justice Committee of Council, and reviewed and approved by the council. So currently, we're signed probably 95% of the agreements with counties and tribes. There are still a couple some follow-up. But so those counties and tribes are implementing those services as they propose to us. We're also working on the evaluation of the previous plan. That's the cycle of JCP. We have the planning process, we have the approval process, we have the implementation process, and then it's followed by evaluation. So this is what's happening right now, and this research will have been our partner for over 20 years now. Evaluating the information that we received from the Juvenile Justice Information System, as well as our own homegrown data manager system. Well, soon there's a Juvenile Justice Information System, holds information for kids who have been referred to the juvenile justice, and data manager contains information for kids who have not, but they're, so it's just came to attention of law enforcement schools and other things. So we don't mix up the kids. So kids and data knowledge do not have a juvenile record. So that's the purpose. But for evaluation purposes, those groups merge, the data merge, and the evaluation happens. So anyway, more of those to come. You've seen some of the evaluations before. That will be another one. It's currently under development. I think it should be ready for council review in June. But just to let you know, that's our process. Planning, approval, implementation, evaluation, and then the cycle starts again. Was the implementation of the Title II 3-year plan renovation reform, we are about to begin. And the reason for us being a little bit behind our initial schedule is because of the development of the juvenile detention guidelines that I will be sharing with you by the three groups, which one of you will have a chance to see what they look like. It's a massive undertaking. Now nobody knows how massive it is, but our own children will put this all together. She collected different type of inputs and information, and then all the editing and things that goes to that. But the provision reform, we should start the planning in January, provided you kindly approve the guidelines in December. So we don't change the date from 2025 to 2026. That's why we'll have a little show and tell today. So we don't have a surprise to you on December 11th. Or did I say took so much time?
No, that was perfect. I think I could actually probably turn these back to blue because it sounds like they're both really still underway, although just further along perhaps than some of the other projects here. At least so the JCP plans are pending approval, and then we'll move to implementation for the new biennium. And the Title II 3-year plan and probation reform are really just we're on the cusp of that work. And we've put it aside really to focus on the juvenile detention guidelines, which you'll be hearing about, I think, tomorrow. Any other, I guess, before I move on I was going to highlight some of the things we have actually completed. But before I do that, were there any questions or comments about any of the stuff on this slide, these priority projects? In most cases, you'll get chances to talk about this stuff in a bunch of different places over the next couple of days. So in the interest of time, I'll keep us moving. a lot of what we've gotten done were really pieces of work around our RFA or request for applications process. We had a pretty massive set of recommendations for improvements to make for this most recent cycle of RFAs, which we did implement. Um, I think we were successful around our goal of like improving our cross-agency communication. That's really our work with ODE procurement, with Department of Justice around some of the things that we work on in our grant agreement and RFA process that helps us to meet our timelines. We implemented a new appeal and feedback process. We've begun collaboration with ODE on data collection and what we're calling participant matching. So that's rather than trying to build a database, which was what we had identified as a potential project in the strategic plan, what we're starting to do now is look at how we can collect data from programs and then work with the Oregon Department of Education to match that data to data that they collect so that we don't need to collect as much from our grantees, but can learn about educational outcomes and other characteristics that ODE collects data on. So it's really trying to align our system with ODE's, which they've been making some strides in trying to make this more feasible for programs within the department to be able to do, to ultimately match our data so that we could then have a more a fuller sort of picture and better information about the young people who are served by our grants and where they're landing within the K-12 system. So we're just beginning that work, but we're really excited about just the collaborative spirit that we're finding with our colleagues in the research and data office at ODE. We're continuing YDC recruitment. We're going to have a breakout on youth recruitment specifically. We've updated our committee structure. The strategy committee had its first meeting about a month back. We met and we talked a lot about this retreat, and a lot of the agenda really reflects the valuable input that we got from that committee. And that strategy committee will also be the place where we're going to continue to focus on the strategic plan and the progress we're making. We are right now, we've been able to open the recruitment for the new position that we got, which will support both our youth committee work as well as grantee convening work. So that position we hope to have filled before the end of the year. We're very excited about that because that really is going to, I think, provide more capacity to really support Strategy 6, which are a lot of our youth-focused projects within the strategic plan. I wanted to talk about the projects that are on hold. Let me check my time. So the first one here, the identify ODE employee resource and affinity groups where YDD staff can engage. This one was interesting because what I've discovered is that at least in terms of organized and things that are out in the open, there are no ODE employee resource groups. At least currently, the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion actually just got new leadership, which we're really excited about. And this might be something, I think it's something ODE has done in the past, but there's nothing active, at least that I've been able to find. So that one's on hold until there's actually something to plug into. Other state agencies have more structure and resources like this. So it's just one where we said, hey, let's find out what's there and then plug into it. But right now there isn't much there. So we're looking at some other ways that we can sort of enact some of these strategy 2 projects really around supporting the youth development division team. The other 3 projects that are all on hold because of just some of the uncertainty around our budget. We had looked at developing a learning stipend model to encourage professional development for staff. And we've actually had to pause all of our travel, which is a lot of times where we're getting to do professional development work. Project 16, where we were really seeking to increase our presence at national conferences, talking about the work that we do and increasing awareness of the youth we serve. Likewise, is impacted by the fact that we don't want to be, right now, we're not really in a position to travel to conferences to present nationally. But I wanted to mention for Project 16, and I made this note in the tracker, that some of my colleagues have actually been asked to contribute to an updated edition of the re-engagement book that Andrew Moore from National League of Cities is publishing. And So I think that's a really exciting way that we are getting to contribute to the national conversation around youth re-engagement. I don't know if any of the folks who are working on that wanted to just share very quickly about that, because I think it's a great example of how we might pivot from the way that we're trying to increase awareness of our work on a national stage. Paul, Sally, Jared, and Molly, if any of you there want to talk about this for a minute, that'd be great.
So just real briefly, going back to the national presentations, something that we have been very consistent presenting at multiple conferences, both in Oregon as well as the state. So obviously with out-of-state travel frozen, that makes it difficult to present at Northwest or National Employment Coalition, where typically we share a lot of the work. But through those presentations, we are working with Andrew Moore to do an updated version of his re-engagement book. It's kind of a nationally renowned support for re-engagement out of the National League of Cities. So we are actually writing 2 chapters. They're in the process of it. One is the state budget, how we got here with re-engagement, connection to workforce, which is very, it's Oregon is leading the way in that. So we've been asked to write how we got to the place that we are through legislation. And then the other chapter we're writing about is some of the examples, specifically focused on a more rural, more sorry, you're kind of blanking on that one, sorry.
Yeah, it's just a few examples of just kind of successful program models that we see both in the urban and rural areas across Oregon. So kind of a fun chapter on just examples, and then elements that we see in all successful programs in terms of relationship building with youth across agencies and partnerships. And that. So yeah, it's been fun.
They get the really interesting ones. You tell I'm not over. So yeah, just a great opportunity for that work. Thanks for
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to highlight that as just the way that where we originally envisioned this project and this work, what we thought it might look like, we're having to adapt. But I feel like this other opportunity has emerged, and I'm really excited and proud of the team for being a part of that. What I would refer to as the re-engagement Bible, version 2. Last one here, just redesigning youth violence and gang prevention grants. We've essentially just paused that work while we await further development around the current biennium budget. Because that program, has not yet, we did not launch those grants with the other grants, and so we've paused on launching them in the event that we do experience any reductions in our grant and aid. We'll talk more about this at the December council meeting. But ultimately, if it turns out that there is no impact to our grant and aid, and if we're able to move forward with those, we have a plan to do so, and we'll pick this back up. But we've just stopped that work for the moment because there's lots of other stuff to do. So I'll quickly talk about some of the things that we will be participating in, learning about at the retreat. There are a few projects that are the workshops and presentations that you're going to be participating in and hearing over the next couple of days connect with. And so Project 23, this is engaging with our partner agencies, around just how we align our resources and services to meet youth who are touching different systems. Tomorrow we have presentations from the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission, as well as the System of Care Advisory Council, which are really tied to that project. And I think this is probably the first of, I think, hopefully other conversations with some of the agencies listed and how we continue to align our work. Implementing periodic youth-led staff and council training. I would like to say that the workshop that we just had before my presentation is a great example of that. Nate, thank you again for really helping us with that. And Nate gave us an amazing set of potential topics that we could present on, or that Nate could help us to present on. And so I'm hoping that we might come to some of that other stuff and have other young people also involved in similar kinds of activities with the council in the future. Project 44, I think this one's a little bit of a stretch, but I felt like some of what we were talking about in that conversation also relates to how we work with youth in the sharing of their stories and advocating for what we do. And I think that one is probably a little less a little less connected, but I wanted to just call that out as something to think about whenever we're thinking about how we honor and involve youth voice in our work. Number 60, building strong relationships with our grant recipients to ensure we're learning from them on how we better address the needs of both organizations and youth. I was trying to figure out, we have a great presentation tomorrow morning on tribal traditional practices in supporting youth. And I think that this could probably be the project that best fits something like that, which is really hearing and learning from an organization, or in this case, a tribal nation that we provide funding to, that works with young people about how they do what they do, and really getting an opportunity to understand their work with young people better. And so I'm very excited for that presentation. The breakout discussions, as mentioned, and you can see this in the agenda, that every breakout discussion is connected back to a project in the strategic plan. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read through these, but tomorrow, well, and today and tomorrow, at the beginning of each of these breakouts, you'll hear a summary of what each of these conversations is going to cover. But each one is really just a way for us to engage in a conversation about this work and hopefully draw members of the council deeper into the work. And so just really excited to say that a lot of, if not almost all of what we're doing over the next couple of days can be drawn back to our strategic plan. I think that I'll go ahead and stop, and I've put some questions here. I know we kind of need to move on. We do have the breakouts coming up pretty soon, but I wanted to open the floor up if folks had some thoughts on the progress, things you would like to see more movement on, things you're excited about, and anything else you'd like to share, or any reflection you have on strategic plan progress.
Oh. Or you mentioned that you're working with ODU with their data and so forth, but how about the fiscal part? Like, are you guys involved part of the PBAM or schedule of charts initiative to revise the accounting codes and so forth? Are you guys involved with that too?
I'm sorry, maybe it's my audio, but I couldn't quite understand what the project was.
Or is YDO included in the PBAM or the schedule of charts initiative to revise the accounting codes?
So, sorry, Paul, so for record, that's the intent, PMAT is the attendance initiative and.
No, PBAM is
accounting.
The what?
Yeah, it's program budgeting and manual.
It's all the accounting coding and how.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was wrong committee. So, Court, I don't know about
I don't think, I'm not aware of us being involved in that.
Okay, good.
So for clarification, the one I was talking about is around attendance initiatives as we go into the accountability phase. So I'm sitting on those committees as well as updating the attendance codes. So I don't know what that looks like. I just know that it's on the calendar for January. So, but that's the committee I sorry.
Yes, I know. Yes, I don't. Should we be, Sam?
Is it just mostly schools and school districts that are accounting for school money?
The concept is right now, school districts and ESCs have been saying that they submit a lot of fiscal reports to ODE. So what ODE is trying to develop is a way where school districts would send a large file, either monthly or quarterly to ODE, then the grant managers themselves will go into and pull out their information. So instead of my people sending me a report for data, LTCT or YSEP, I would go into the system and pull out the expenses charged to data, LTCT, instead of they compiling a report, I will be.
We're happy to check in on that, but I think the grant managers and grant team and appointed, I think a lot of the financial reporting happens through our own SM Apply Serving Monkey Apply system. We require program reporting and financial reporting in that system, not through an ODE system. And so, most of our grants are not with schools and school districts, some are.
Yeah.
But most are not. So we meet regularly with the fiscal folks on our competitive grants, on our juvenile crime prevention grants, our grants with the non-federally recognized tribes. I don't think are mixed up in that process. So,
And
Interesting.
and as yet, again, I could probably be getting some feedback at some point, but we haven't heard from our school district grantees that are grant, if they even want our reporting combined into it, because it's different, right? So it's just a different way of reporting the funding. So at this point, I'm not going to approach that.
Yeah, maybe I sort of think of it in the context of just the consolidation work around reporting and youth development Oregon grants and programs have generally been left outside of that, primarily because we mostly fund community-based organizations as well as local governments, tribal governments. We fund some schools and ESDs, but they are opting in, they're competing for the grants. So it's treated as different from the things that schools are required to report on, or the programs that are happening in every district or every school. So I would guess similarly, this accounting project is leaving us out of it because in few cases, our school's actually going to be, reporting financially on our grants, and if they choose to do so, if they pursue our grant, we try to make it very easy. I'm very proud of our new expenditure report, which I got to work with the grants team on, and our hope is that our financial reporting is actually pretty simple, and we recognize for a lot of the small organizations we work with, they don't have accounting departments in a lot of cases. So hopefully we're not the problem there.
Thanks, Ford. I don't know how much more time we have. I know Daniela has a point or question.
Yeah.
If anybody else does.
I'll make it quick. I just want to say I appreciate the thoroughness of this, the connection to the strategy and the updates and the percentage. This is how I operate, so I like it. It's very transparent and it's clear why we're doing what we're doing. So, thank you.
Here. Any other comments or questions?
Just an update on one of the strategic plan, and Corey, you can go with the number, I don't remember it, but part of one of the strategic plan items was to get feedback in the application process. The grants team, we've completed over 100 feedbacks for applicants, both successful and unsuccessful applicants. I think it's been a really positive process with really strong feedback around that work that we can incorporate into it. So just an example of some of the strategic plan work that's coming into action, that's about a fourth of the application. That's actually over a fourth of the application that we received. Many of our current grantees didn't really request feedback because they knew they were going to use it in the same way. So you kind of do the math. So I think really positive. That's a huge increase from what we see.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Well, with that, I think I can pass it back to Brian or to the chair, and I appreciate everyone's time. If you have any questions about the strategic plan, please feel free to reach out, and we'll let you know when the next strategy committee meeting is if you'd like to join us.
Thank you, Cord. How about a hand from the applause? Update and on time. Thank you, Cord. I think we'll bring maybe Cord said this, but we will, at each of our quarterly meetings, give you an update as to kind of where things stand. We can make it kind of a snapshot, maybe, on a slide or something, so we'll figure out the best ways to share it, but we will keep referring back, and I appreciate, let's connect the dots so that folks are, understanding the things that all the feedback and the things that you told us, unless we decide explicitly oh, that's not really important, but when we decided it's important, we're going to let you know how it's going, or if it's on pause, or what that looks like. And occasionally, things also are coming up. So in real time, we're adjusting and, with budget issues and questions too. We're trying to be nimble. I will say, just to be clear on the travel out-of-state travel. Out-of-state travel is allowed when it is deemed to be essential, and so we do work internally, and I ultimately making the final decision as to whether something is essential or not. And so we're fortunate to be able to have one of our staff members go to the Coalition for Juvenile Justice Racial and Ethnic Disparities Conference. Lawrence, thanks for representing us there. It's really important space in which we are in the conversation about what's happening with juvenile justice at a national level, because the Coalition for Juvenile Justice is a technical service provider to the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. So I hope that it's work for us there. We'll be at this Coalition for Juvenile Justice Conference in May. We'll take a really small 2 or 3 of us to that. We've taken 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe in the past, but we'll keep that really to a limited group. And then we're also fortunate to have a couple of council members represent us at the National Youth Employment Coalition Youth Days Conference. Chose to send council members and not staff because felt like the importance around like youth voice and being in conversations around advocacy with members of Oregon's federal delegation and their staff. So it's really important. During the government shutdown, but did have Yoselin Delgarza and Alex. I was like Robinson, but I couldn't remember your first name, Alex. Alex was also there. They'll share some quick observations, highlights at our December meeting, and around advocacy, around youth workforce development, and just kind of larger issues around youth engagement. So appreciate you really that. More to come on that. So sorry. Now we are going to move to breakouts.
We got a break.
I think we want to keep moving. What? I said we were going to keep moving.
Okay, sorry. I'm following.
How about this, Paul? When
we'll get you there.
Yeah, as we move to the breakouts, you will, I think, be moving around. So you will just at any point take care of yourself. Do what you got to do. But I think we're going to do kind of a quick overview.
Yeah, why don't you guys do the overview, and then I'll break group up after you do the.
Sounds good. So, Cord, you and I'm happy to just kind of share kind of.
That's you.
Is it you? Is that you? Am I in the right way?
You're over.
On the back page.
All right, so we are going to do a round robin of 3 kind of like conversations. We're going to do a quick intro. Sorry, I should probably give context of what we're doing. Quick intro from a couple of the hosts, and then we'll number off and we'll break out into these really quick conversations. It'll give context when you get to the room, right? And then we'll just engage in 3 topics. We'll have those 3 different topics next or tomorrow, virtually in terms of breakout. So we'll have the hosts of the rooms maybe give 30 seconds to a minute. Kind of here's what this conversation is about.
Now the one question logistically, since there are 3 topics, how are people getting?
You're going to go to all 3. I know. We're going to rotate through all 3. So the next hour, that's context that's probably important. Thank you. Unless are you running this, since I have to leave the room, or we don't need to keep track?
There's enough time. Am I running this?
Are you going to tell us one more time?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. We can do it.
Melissa will notify and then we'll move.
I guess we just need to decide which conversation is where, and people need to choose where to be, but know you will be able to be on each of them over the course of the next.
We'll number off.
Just number off. There it is. Number off. Why don't I just quickly give you the high level so that we can keep moving. So juvenile detention guidelines is going to be led by Anya. She gave a little bit of context. I think this is the project that's been going on for a year plus around best practices for detention facilities around the state. It is a statutory responsibility of this council to develop and share these guidelines. So we are doing that at our juvenile justice committee level. they're going to come to this full body in December to approve or accept a motion to approve. So understand that that's involved a lot of engagement with both youth, judiciary, various members of juvenile justice. And so the process of engagement, I think, has been really deep and in some ways is as important as the product itself. So, but if you're like, what the hell are they talking about? Detention guidelines? Now's your chance to get some audience with Anya and other members of our prevention and justice team. You've led grant-making in our strategic plan. There is a project around having youth make, assemble and make decisions with some of our grant dollars. We took our community schools money and said, and you all have voted to approve this, let's give this to a group led by our youth committee to make decisions about what those grants go to support. So we need to dive in a little bit. This is just 15 minutes of discussion about it. We're not going to get all the way there, but this is to keep that work advancing. Community, community outreach, really on the heels of what we did this morning. Paul and I kind of touched base like, hey, we have an opportunity, let's say in the late winter, early spring of next year, to go out to community and tell them about our work. Maybe we should use that for some youth town halls. Maybe we should talk to legislators. Maybe we should do both. This is kind of our off-year outreach effort. In the year where there's a legislative session, which will be 2027, we've often then gone back to communities and talked about our request for applications and a little bit more the nitty-gritty of what our grants are. So that's the landscape. We want your input. We also want to hear, how do you want to be engaged? Are you willing to show up? Where might you want to go? Who do you know? Those kinds of things. Those are the 3 topics for today. Tomorrow, 3 more. We'll give you the introduction.
Perfect. All right. And going back to context, yes, you will go to all 3. We'll have the group kind of circle around and just count by 3s. Go 1, 2, 3, and break up. I'm not sure. I have no idea what breakup rooms are, but we'll get to that in a second. One question, Nate. I know you were going to have to duck off. Are you going to stay for this section, or I'm just trying to figure out logistics. Sorry for putting me on the screen. I don't have mine.
Oh, no, you're good. I will most likely be traveling and listening in from a distance, so you don't need to prioritize putting me in a group. But if there's the option, I will engage as much as I can.
Perfect. All right. Do you mind? Are you signed up? What staff we have signed on to the ready to go? I'm signed up for that. Okay. So we'll just have one staff. It's an all here. Drop some paper on who wants to carry the. All right. So you don't need to worry about it all. If the caddy, we only have one caddy, which is Nate. So Jared will take the caddies. Cord is on the side. Yep. So we're good. Sorry, logistic conversation. Out on the fly. All right. So, Anasia, Joy. So, Jeff, let's start with you.
1.
Okay.
2.
3.
1, 2.
If you have an assignment, don't do a number because you already know where you're going. So, Jenny.
Oh, 3.
1.
2.
3.
1.
There we go. I think that's perfect. All right.
Why don't we do groups 1 and 2 in here?
Yeah.
Like at opposite corners, and then.
Why not, since you have the computer, you go to the breakout. So 3 goes to breakout.
3 goes to the briefing room. Yes.
Yeah, why do you think Nate to start with that? Okay.
And then, so that's where you're going, Jared?
Nate, you're a 3, right?
Are you going to the briefing room?
Yeah.
Okay, then I will be in touch with you. I'll can I just text you guys about the time or whatever? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, we were trying to do.
For record show, I can read Jared's enough.
Since Anya's over there, the 1s are going to start.
Perfect.
In that corner.
And then 2s are here with Ryan and I. That's great. Thank you. You're in the breakout.
Okay. Let's start the time.
15 and then
We're starting now?
Great. All right. So 3s, I'm not sure where the briefing room is, but if you're a 3, you're going with Jared and All right, 3s with us. Alright, so we're gonna kind of do two little wrap up things for the last activity. So turn to your neighbor and just tell them one intriguing thing in the last hour that you've heard or a concept that you have from what happened in our conversation. So just turn to your neighbor, and something that was intriguing to you in the last 3 breaks. Just one thing. Hopefully everything was
Hey, Nate, are you still there? Perhaps not.
yeah. In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Did anybody hear anything intriguing or have something intriguing that you want to share out with the group? It'd be, I can start, I'll start here on my. I was super intrigued about how to bring some of our grantee youth together to tell us what they would like their community like. So they had maybe said, what would your ideal community look like? Funding, none of that is important. What would your ideal community look like, and gathering some of that information to help inform our grants? To me, it's super intriguing. Really intrigued.
I was really intrigued, and want to shout out Joanne on here for those discussion guidelines. So they're very thorough. They put a lot of thought into it. And you can tell that it's definitely geared towards justice and rehabilitation and not punitive punishment.
You're here.
It's a teamwork.
And everyone else. Everyone else who helped out. Thank you. So everyone who helped. I really just appreciate how
Sam, I want to say that I was really intrigued by the idea, I think it was you, Alex, that voiced it, of using a video application for youth grants. And that just got my wheels turning, thinking about a group of young people putting together their ideas and putting together a video like it was.
You got my intrigue up now too. All right, others. Yeah, I'm learning.
I'm gonna start calling out names.
Yeah. Maybe 2 more. How about 2 more just observations to kind of close this out?
I'll just say, we were talking about the intriguing thing we heard in 2 different groups. We kind of heard youth grant making means different things to different people. And so it's which end of the, or which part of the grant are the youth involved in, or all. But I think that's helpful discussion to have. but just thinking about youth grant making, are the youth applying for the grant or the youth awarding the grant, or is it both? So I'd like to deeper dive into that and see what that looks like, because that would be interesting. It goes along with potentially a video, which is also fascinating.
Oh, one more. Thank you.
Food seems to be a thing. Food seems to be a thing that yeah, I just think it's interesting, you know, when you have these conversations with community, how sometimes you overlook the most basic things, right? Like you make these complicated systems and programs, and then it's like, oh yeah, we forgot to feed the kids.
They'll let you know.
They'll let you know, yeah, for sure.
So the last thing I'll do, I'll turn it over to Brian. Thinking about our strategic plan, do you think these three things are part of it? Are we hitting on some of the topics that are in our strategic plan? A thumbs up, maybe, yeah, we're getting there, or, yeah, so just kind of a quick assessment. Thumbs up, yeah, you feel like these are hitting on some of the important things of our strategic plan. Corey, if you can see most of it, we got thumbs up, kind of a little bit, we're getting closer, so that's a positive piece. So I just want to make sure you guys see feedback there, your work.
Well, thank you, and I'm just looking at the time, 2:37. We're now more or less at kind of the close of our day. I just want to quickly run through what tomorrow looks like, and while I'm doing that, can you please give some thought to any final takeaways from today, or questions that you have that perhaps you'd like to put into this space? So just think about that. But I'm just going to remind you, day 2 is virtual. Do not come back here to this building. Or if you do, maybe you can convince Chief Copeland and Lieutenant Winning to bring you back here. But we'll be starting, log in roughly 9:30-ish with your coffee and your or whatever tea, and we'll just kind of get folks gathering online. Then at 10, we will have a presentation by Caroline Cruz with the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. I mean, to have Caroline speaking to us about understanding and honoring traditional tribal practices is amazing. She's respected around the United States and probably even beyond on this topic. I heard her speak on this topic at a national juvenile justice conference at an Onion and Lawrence was like one of Lawrence's first things he did when he came on board. And Caroline was at this conference in San Diego. I didn't really know that she was on the agenda until I looked a little bit more closely. So Caroline is fantastic. You all may recall that at our meeting, our YDC meeting in September, which Andy helped, lead the way in getting that organized. And then one of his supervisor, TJ, was there. And TJ has, I think, in some way also taken on some of the work that Caroline used to do. If I'm not mistaken. Pretty much. Yeah. So, but she is a just amazing person, presenter, trainer, and so I'm just typing up. Please take advantage of that time. Thanks, Anya, for making the connection specifically, and Melissa for getting all the logistics together. So that's happening. Then it's a little break. Then we're going to do similar breakouts, except they're all going to be virtual. So that will be awesome. But we want to give you these little, 15-minute bite-sized opportunities to get into some of the topics, ask some of the questions, help us maybe check some of our blind spots. You see the topics. We're going to talk about impact brief, which is something that is in our plan around what are ways we can share the impact of our grant making, the impact of our grantees, talk a bit about giving you all as council members and perhaps other partners, like some short, piece of information, almost not necessarily, maybe it's a white paper, maybe not, I don't know, but just, information that I think can help us tell the story of the great work that's happening around the state. We'll have a piece on guided questions for widely of data collection reports. We've been bringing you data on a yearly basis, usually in the March-ish timeframe, but we, in our plan, have a specific project or task around, like, what are the guided questions? What are the things that we want our data to answer for us? What are the audiences? What's the purpose of the data collection? Let's figure that out and then let that lead the way for future data collection and reporting. So that, again, just like we're going to spend 15 minutes on it. That might end up becoming a work group or part of one of the council committees or something. So we're not going to solve it tomorrow, but we just want to get surface some key issues, and then youth recruitment engagement. I know we've spent a fair amount of time on that in today's breakouts. The one around outreach. We spent some time thinking about how to incorporate more youth voice and just have more youth presence. So specifically, this is maybe we spend some more time on engagement, but also on like recruitment to council or committee, or maybe just rethinking how we need to be going to youth versus maybe having them come to us, or maybe we're building on engagements that lead to an idea that I heard Sam say, like, oh, maybe there's a summit of some kind, but maybe that's 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road. But more to happen there. I know our team, Sally and Paul, are going to be engaging more on a sort of individual basis with many of the youth who are part of our circle already. So we're just excited to continue to elevate youth voice in the ways that Nate and the team will talk about this morning. So those are the 3 breakouts. Then we'll hear from the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission. And then after that, have a little chance for questions for him. Then System of Care Advisory Council. Both of those entities, by the way, also have like really, I think, good, solid engagement with their youth advisory groups or committees or councils that all go by different names. So there's just some good information that they can provide and examples. And we've been partnering with them, frankly, for the past probably year or two on different projects. So we're just excited to be able to have them come together with us. So that's tomorrow, and with next steps and takeaways online, get you done around 3 o'clock. I will then now, maybe we'll go around the room. Just have folks share a quick takeaway or question from today's day. Today's day. So I'm going to turn to you so I can be more thinking of myself.
Let's see. I think the beginning of the session, so it's about my gratitude for everyone, for everything that everyone has brought to the day.
Big thanks to you for all of
Yes.
logistics, getting space and all that. So treats and this and that. So thank you. We'll give you that. Yeah, takeaway or question for today.
Takeaway, I am just thankful that we're all able to get together
Speak up.
Okay. I'm also really appreciative of the conversations we had. I really liked how the sessions worked out. I felt like it was great getting to talk to everybody, not just me. But yeah, it's forward to this more.
Echoed that, and it was really exciting to see so much engagement and so many different ideas. And yeah, I feel like we can see the impact of the work coming out of today's like ideas are really going to help you. So that was really exciting.
I have one takeaway, one question. The takeaway is that I am always so impressed with the staff of this entity, the professionalism, the workload, the work rate. It's wonderful to be around people that love what they do, and it shows. And then for it to also have the work that is really meaningful and matters and can change the world. Like that's every time I connect to the chairman. That's my colleagues on the council, but also the staff that do this. And then so thank you. My question is, committee has come up a lot, committee. I don't even remember what committees I'm on. Could we re-send out like what, I don't know the names. Does anyone know?
Definitely on all the committees that I need.
But I think it's not just a me thing. So like circulating that.
Thank you for being vulnerable.
Yeah, the takeaway, I feel like, there are just so many people from like different places here, which is really cool, and like really cool perspectives doing really cool work, so I'm always just like excited to talk to people and get to know them. I'm like, my question is like, when I try to explain this to people, I'm like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't even know, so like, I definitely would love, like if we had a little debrief, like what are everyone's elevator speeches on like what this is, what we do, what is the council? I would love that, because I'm like, I'm at a board meeting, can't tell you much more, but I'm here.
I just want to thank everybody. I'm so excited to be re-engaged. It's just having started in June and then having to miss a meeting in my backyard in Warm Springs. It's nice to get back involved and be here, and I'm kind of excited because this feels kind of, the last meeting was kind of getting my feet under me and stuff. It feels like we're at a starting point of the cycle right now, right? And so I'm excited to be back.
I want to do a shout out to Cord, because this is my third retreat in the month. I got to see strategic plan in different iterations. The one with the million post-its. This one. I will say, Cord, I like this one. But I genuinely appreciate seeing you put the results from our last one. It felt like, hey, it wasn't a waste, right? We didn't just spend 2 days putting stickies up on a board and then nobody kept track of the stickies. It's very cool to know you were keeping track of the stickies. And to that extent, the question for me would be, is somebody keeping track of the conversations from this one? And I assume the answer is yes, but shout out and thank you for following it.
I think I would expand on what Kim said. The strategic plan, to me, seemed like it was just an octopus. It had too many arms, too many tentacles, and I was not clear on how we were going to be able to follow up on anything. And so I love the tracker, and I love the fact that this retreat was organized around taking us down the path to actually achieve those outcomes that we outlined were pretty darn ambitious. And I can see how it's happening. That is fantastic. And I also want to say thank you to everyone in the room and online, because conversations have been great, and we do have good perspectives around the table, a variety of ages and backgrounds and experiences, and it's just really enriching and rewarding.
So my takeaway is I'm thankful that you're asking the right reflective questions. What I mean by that is some of the questions reference how are you doing things, and then it's followed up with what can you do? So how we're doing things is really reflective on what can we do to improve that. So that's my takeaway. I really appreciate seeing the growth that you're doing, reevaluating the work that you're doing. My question is, how how we not rest on progress that we made, and continue to move forward in that direction. That's my question. My challenge here.
Just a quote from one here. It seems like we're trending in the right direction. Just what Lauren said it a year ago, I just think it's just like the best way of explaining. But I think we are trending in the right direction, right? So it's like keep trending off, but I think was like my observation, there is such good energy around this room. I don't know if you have a sense like energy from people. I'm not an extra sense, I'm not pretending to be, but it's been comfortable, and I hope everybody could speak whatever came to your mind without feeling uncomfortable. So it's a good vibe in this room. So thank you for that.
Well, first of all, I like the location because I live right down the street. And I was a little nervous about today because of last year, all the sticky notes. It was a little intimidating and overwhelming last year, but this year I feel like it was very well organized, good flow, good turnout. All good. And what kind of something else? Oh, one takeaway from today for me was I didn't realize that we can, we're being paid some of the qualifying on. Yeah, today has been great, and I really, Nate, I don't know if you can hear, but I really appreciated your presentation and kind of, I feel like gave us some grounding for the afternoon and made the afternoon sessions feel kind of connected to each other and connected to that theme of like how are we using these different vehicles to get to more environment. So I think that was really well designed, whoever's idea that was. I think for me, I'm curious, like I think a council like this is somewhat detached from the work of the programs that are ultimately funded by this body. And I'm really curious how organizations and how youth are faring right now. This is a challenging time to be implementing youth programs for vulnerable youth. And I would be really curious to know just kind of how organizations are doing, how you are doing, how that's changing. And so maybe just a thought for future meetings, because I know we've had some grantee presentations before, but just kind of like what's happening on the ground or knowing would make me feel more connected to our mission.
For me, having everybody in person here today was very good. There's a lot of energy and a lot of great exchange of ideas with Dan's expertise. And my wondering is how it can be sustained tomorrow, because some of us, because we're in virtual, to be honest, I'm probably one, we're going to be multitasking. Like our engagement and our attention, our focus will be here. How many of us will all of us be online, like our attendance rate and so forth. I'm just being honest. Today was very valuable having a person meeting. Let's see how tomorrow. Just being honest.
Yeah. I'm really grateful for the time we were able to have together and to see the turnout across the council. It's just been incredible. I think this is probably one of the largest retreats we have with representation in person. And I appreciate the opportunity to have a hybrid element for folks who are able to join online. Shout out to Nate for the training, because I agree that provided some really important grounding for our work and how we operationalize parts of our strategic plan. And I also want to thank the team for just continuing to take in feedback from council members of like,
hey, here's what's been working, what we're wondering about, here are things we want to see improved. And just the way that today was structured allowed so many people to be able to share, to engage in multiple aspects of our work. So I'm feeling really energized by that too. And I think, you know, given everything that's happening at so many levels, to feel like we are seeing our impact with the sphere of influence we have, it's super important in just building agency and saying, okay, we are all connected and working towards a shared mission. So I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow. And I'm hoping to share more after we have our sessions tomorrow. I just wanted to say thank you again.
I got out of this meeting a lot, only because I'm not seeing my phone. Yeah.
Pay more attention.
Yeah. I learned a lot actually with the youth leadership, with the youth voice. I thought it changed my thought about different opportunities for youth, different strategies. One of it was trust. A lot of it has to do with tradition because of the native tribes and adaptability. Will work with everybody. So that was one of the biggest things that I got. Other than knowing more about grants, so I'm still kind of reading with the grant things. So I got more steps and understanding of where and how and what you look for in each grant. So a lot of it has to do with the scope of things. So that's I'm still learning. So being 8 years and still learning. Yeah, it's I appreciate everybody being here today.
Yeah, I would echo what I heard here today. I think what I have such gratitude for people showing up with open hearts and with intentionality. And it's not always that you see a leadership organization understand and truly be responsive to the practitioners at the lower level. And I appreciate that both with the staff and with this committee. It's huge, right? And being on both sides, I can see it, and it doesn't always happen. So I'm very appreciative. I'm also appreciative of authentic, spicy conversation. I didn't hear anybody here not, and you know, I wouldn't probably know, but it felt like people really spoke up and talked about what was important and challenged conversation. And I think we need to have more of that. So I appreciate when I see it. And my only curiosity is, what will we do to make sure that we are engaging the most vulnerable voices and the youth voice?
Well, I think I'm supposed to repeat what everyone else said. Also, I should preface this. Wait a second. It sounds bad. It sounds. I knew everyone in here did amazing work, but it was lovely to see everyone working in person and with so much passion. It really showed that all of our hearts are actually and that everyone really cares. You guys didn't. It's nice to see it in person and get that like first person. So I'm just really thankful to have everyone here and everyone really engaged. It seemed like that everyone was really good conversations and really in the breakout session. So I'm just really thankful for that. And my question is, what's the review time? Is this how do we keep the same momentum going online? Because I can agree, I probably will also be multitasking. I'm going to try my best not to.
I'll say I appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate the spicy conversation, or the why. Or I thought it was this, I thought we were gonna do this. Right, the clarification, the back and forth. I think for us, it's really helpful to try to explain things. Because it's very easy, I think, some of us to get into internally. We do it this way, and this is what we've done it, and we may inherently do it this way because that's maybe easier, but easier isn't always the right way, right? So I appreciate the pushback, the feedback, the questions. That is really what informs our processes. Well, maybe we should change it. Maybe do it this way, right? So thank you all for asking questions and being engaged. Again, hopefully we can say that tomorrow.
Yeah, you've all said that this work is so incredibly powerful.
I love that I had the opportunity to interact with some folks today that I hadn't had the opportunity to speak with before. And I appreciate that I think we all have a pretty good understanding that we work within some systems that are very difficult to change sometimes. And so I appreciate our ability to think big and dream big about how we can change these systems and then be realistic about, okay, where can we actually have some impact, and we need to kind of narrow this down a little bit and think about that. I think we've done that with the strategic plan, like folks have said. We really have focused on those areas where we can make an impact. And so I just appreciate all the input from everybody on how we can make those changes.
Huge thank you to whoever got us this room. This felt like a really great space for us to be in. Great. Yeah, Lizzie suggested. Yeah, getting to like actually see everybody, and just think it's been really useful. Huge thank you to Nate for having just like absolutely shown up. Like I thought he was going to put 3 slides together and he just knocked it out of the park, and I think that was such a great way to ground the conversation today. But like just we talked about a little bit of like the playfulness of like having a little bit more sparkle. And I think that to bring that into the council meetings enlivens it, and to have so many people in person just really makes for like dynamic, engaging conversations. My favorite was getting to stay in one spot and have everybody like circle through and talk about the youth-led grant making. And I just feel so like kind of blown away. There were so many brilliant ideas. So the question is like, how are we gonna do that? That's nice. Yeah, as long as it's tomorrow. And also to Lawrence's point of like, how can we truly like take these achievements and then like keep going? And like, what else could this council do? What could come next?
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is to keep pushing the systems with it. It's easy to stay in the norm, and I appreciate it today. And Nate, and we've said it, several people have said it. Nate brought some information that honestly I haven't seen in 25 years of working in community services, or 25, or I don't know. But that information to me grounds a conversation that I've heard since I started here over 5 years ago, where we actually feel like we have some tangible things to move forward in incorporating youth voice at a level that, one, I don't think a lot of agencies are able to do, and I think we have the flexibility and options to do that. So excited to see. I appreciate the ideas too. We have lists of things now that we can take action on with the strategic plan. So hopefully that report looks even less post-it notey as we continue.
Small and mighty. That's what I'd say. I appreciate that we're reminded some of our friends Department of Education and other spaces appropriately, like we are independent and we are impacted to the department's services. And so we sit in this place that's in between, and I think there's real opportunity for growth and transformation in that. So we'll just keep plugging away. Yeah, we'll keep plugging away on that. So those are my turn. Don't want to forget me. See Nate and I see Cord. Cord, do you want to jump in and then we'll let Nate close us out?
Oh, I saw Nate unmute, so I was going to let Nate start, but I think it'd be great for Nate to finish to end this share out. So I'll just say quickly that at the strategy committee meeting where we really talked about what we wanted to do at this retreat, really heard that youth voice was something that folks wanted to dig into. And so I think, again, the presentation that Nate and put together with our team, I think really helped to set that tone. And it's exciting to hear how people felt that resonating through the other topics. And so maybe, the the thing I wonder about is like tomorrow and what that will bring. I think it's going to be a very different format, and that we'll be hearing from some partners. Um, and I think this lens of how young people are represented within these different, within the work of Warm Springs Tribe and within the work of ADPC. And so CAC might be really interesting, and I think we might hear about that. So I feel great about how that theme is emerging. And I do wonder, I mean, after taking notes in the conversation about youth-led grant making, um, there are so many directions we could go in and different interpretations of what that means. But I think the question I have is, what is the envelope that we can push to do something really innovative that is truly youth driven there? So I'm excited by the ideas that we're percolating, and excited to see what's to come. And I'll pass it over to Nate.
Thank you so much, Cord. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm in my car, so I think it's sweet. I'm seeing
You're good,
some
you're
head
clear.
nods. Awesome. Well, I mean, thank you everyone for the praise. I'm like, honestly, it's going to be tough to top what everyone has said thus far. But I will say, just and for me, in terms of takeaway, I mean, it's very exciting and invigorating to just have so much support on wanting to hear youth voice. As someone that's like spent the vast majority of my career doing direct service, like that's been an area where a lot of burnout comes from, where you feel like you're alone, where you feel like you're trying to support young people and there aren't folks that are in alignment or resonate with the values and just the approach that's taken. So just knowing and getting to have the opportunity to come out and present and just have these conversations is just really exciting for me. And I mean, in terms of like questions going forward, I don't know if I guess it's kind of a question, but like, is there any way that I can help support like continuing to just move the work forward within this? Like, I'm very much an action and results oriented person. So if there's anything that I can do to help provide additional context, information, partner to work together, anything like that, I would be more than happy to do that within the council, outside the council. I'm happy to do it all. So just thank you, everyone. And again, like, I appreciate the praise, and like, and I would invite everyone to just extend that same praise to yourself and to the group collectively, because we got a lot of great conversations done today. And I feel like it really helps set the foundation for exactly what Cord said, a lot of innovative, cool measures going forward. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to connect some more tomorrow.
Fantastic. That ends day one. We will see you online for day two. So.
Just a couple housekeeping things. Can you please take out your YDO name tags and leave them on the table up here? If you want or need a hard copy of the strategic plan, you can take it with you, or the agenda. And then we need escorts to the front where you're turning your visitor badge. I think that's it.
If you have notes from your youth activities, please hand us out.